欢迎大家回到言行天下，我是那人琴，也欢迎我们今天的嘉宾们。今天呢，我们有2组嘉宾，一组呢是现在大家在屏幕上看到的，他们呢是马贝、张斌、彭娜和李春贵。在总统辩论会开始之前呢，我们会为大家做半个小时的讨论。总统辩论会呢是在东部时间9点到10点半。辩论会之后呢，我们会有另外一组嘉宾们为大家做1个小时的评论。今天的总统辩论会呢是3次辩论会中的第1次，除了总统辩论会，还会有副总统的辩论会。实际上呢，下周3就是 Kamala Harris 和 Mike Pence 的副总统的辩论会，希望大家也来关注。如果你订阅了我们的视频，就不会错过了。这次的总统辩论会呢是在 Cleveland、Ohio 举办的，是由 Fox News 的名嘴 Chris Wallace 主持的。这次总统辩论会一共1个半小时，分成6个部分，每个部分呢15分钟，专注讨论1个话题，所以呢是有6个话题。每次呢主持人呢他会问1个问题，然后呢给 Trump 和 Biden 每个人2分钟时间回答问题，之后呢再展开对这个问题的辩论，15分钟后就换下一个议题。好，那我请李春贵我们的嘉宾呢，先给大家介绍一下哈，今天的总统辩论会6个议题到底都是些什么吧。好，李春贵呢，你现在你在 mute yourself， 你好。
谢谢主持人这个今天的6个主题呢，实际上在报纸上都已经在媒体上都已经发表了，是吧？就是6个，第一个议题呢，就是讨论的议题就是 Trump 和那个 Biden 现任总统和前副总统的2个人的过去的记录。第2个议题呢，就是最高法院。因为最高法院在这发生了很多事，然后呢，第3个就是 COVID-19， 就是因为大家都知道这个疫情啊，对这美国的社会、经济各个方面都有很大的影响，这是一个主要议题。然后第4个呢就是经济，当然了，随着疫情的变化，大家也看到了这个股市是各方面的经济状况也是上上下下的啊。第5个呢就是种族和骚乱，大家都知道这个今年的5月份呢以来，这个美国因为那个 George Floyd 因为警察过度执法被杀了以后呢，这个各个地方都有很多的这个不安定吧，应该是，这也是一个主要议题。第6个议题就是说这个 integrity of election， 就是关于这个选举的完整性。
好，谢谢你，李春贵。那么我想呢，利用这个时间哈，因为我们有现在还大约半个小时的时间吧，我想让嘉宾们来谈谈这几个议题之外的问题哈。当然了，这2天呢吵得这个沸沸扬扬的就是川普的税表问题，我们就先来谈谈这个问题哈。因为呢，其他的这6个问题呢，我们等大选辩论之后，我们来具体再来展开讨论哈。那我们现在用这个时间先来谈谈川普的税表问题。那好，那我现在要不然请马贝来给大家先介绍一下哈，最近《纽约时报》先爆料的一个川普的税表问题到底是怎么回事吧。马贝，你来。
谢谢那人情也非常荣幸能够和大家一起参加咱们今天的这个 pre-debate 这个讨论。那我就首先声明一下，我不是会计师，我也不是做税法的律师那我只是跟大家简单的聊一下自从9月27号《纽约时报》大幅的刊载了这个Trump 的这个税表的这个新闻，他的一些事实。我们大家都知道Trump 他自从他当上总统以来，打破了很多的这个传统和规矩。其中一个最大的这个传统呢和这个规矩呢，就是他是唯一的一位在任的总统，从来没有公布过他的税表。这个在美国这样的一个民主的法治的这个社会呢，其实是很难以想象的。作为国家总统，竟然我们都看不到他的税表。当然，他在2016年竞选的时候，他曾经保证，只要他当上总统，他一定会公开他的税表。但是直到今天，我们也没有看到他公开他的税表，而是《纽约时报》在2天前，也就是2天半之前嘛，9月27号第一次的 公布了大量的事实，关于他的这个过去这10几年来的这个报税情况。所以我接下来就给大家一些一个很快的一个总结，因为实在是内容实在是太多，而且《纽约时报》它还会以连载的方式和大家继续报道川普的这个他的这个报税的情况。当然，我再加一笔，就是今天也就在我们这个总统辩论第一场辩论之前这个总统候选人，民主党总统候选人Biden 他已经公布了他的税表，所以我们就可以完全看到这个对比情况那第一点呢，我想就是令人最大跌眼镜的，就是在2016年和2017年这2年之间Trump 他一个是作为总统候选人，第二个是他作为一个总统，他在这2年报的税是750美元，也就是2016年报了750美元，2017年同样报的是750美元。我这里指的是他的这个联邦的这个联邦的收入税。这个在常人来说是不可以想象的。我记得我在研究生的时候，我交的税都比他交的要多，这是很难想象的。所以这是 No.1 第一点。第二点呢，就是也很让人跌破眼镜的是，有很多我们想象不到的这种花费会能够成为你的这个会用来抵税。就是我们通常说你把它作为business expenses， 然后你可以去抵税。那像哪一种呢？比方说特朗普他在他的这个以前很有名的一个电视真人秀叫 The Apprentice 这个学徒这个真人秀里面，他的花费的7万美元的这个理发费，就是他这个特别拽的这个发型7万美元，这个能够拿来抵税。所以呢很不好意思我这2天听到很多朋友在笑话说，大家赶紧去开公司。你开了公司以后，你的个人的花费，比方说去理发、去美容，都可以作为你的公司的这个开发，这个业务来抵税。所以从这个角度来说，我觉得也是一个脑洞大开。但是从另外一点呢，我觉得非常反映了这个我们现任总统他的这个品德的问题是 Do you have integrity？ 所以这是第2点。第3点呢，就是很多大家都觉得他可能在Trump 在他的一些很有名的这个生意方面肯定是非常非常赚钱的。其实不然，《纽约时报》发现的是，在他一些最有名的一些生意当中呢，其实反而是赔了上百万、上千万的这个美元。比方说他经营的高尔夫球场，比方说他经营的这个度假村等等。其实特朗普他作为一个房地产的这么一个开发商和商人，他其实是一直在亏损的。但是同时呢，他利用他亏损的这些钱来抵税，来不得不说给我们造成了一个很大的假象，就是说大家都觉得他的生意其实很赚钱，其实不然，他其实已经破产而且申请破产了很多回。那第4点呢？其实我估计很多选民都已经很有研究，就是说特朗普他的整个的这些地产产业其实是遍布全世界的包括比方说土耳其美国商业协会他们就支持特朗普在土耳其拿到他们的这个地产权，同时像沙特拉伯等等很多国家。所以呢《纽约时报》发现的另外一个事实呢，就是国外的投资人在美国境外的这些投资人给了很多特朗普好处，就是给他的地产和他的开发商业务在国外给他很多很多的好处。那第5点呢，也是让大家跌破眼镜的。大家都知道Trump 家族他们是一个家族生意，所以他是一个 Trump family。那他在这个他的这个家族生意当中呢，又想出了很多很多的这个避税的绝招其中有1、2点呢，就是他大笔一划，就是什么呢？就是他的资讯费。这个资讯费可不是小数目这个资讯费都是几百万、几千万的这个资讯费。然后他通过这个资讯费来给自己制造一个避免交税或者是抵税的这么一个业务，这么一个机会。但是这个资讯费给了谁呢？其中有一笔现在《纽约时报》非常怀疑的就是说，这一笔就给了他的女儿 Ivanka。那 Ivanka 呢，其实是一直在川普家族担任这种 这个非常高的这个行政总裁的这个职务的。当然，据说他应该是从去年开始，他辞退了他所有的这个生意上的这个职务全职担任这个他父亲的这个白宫助理。但是就是在这样的情况之下，《纽约时报》还是发现了一笔收入非常非常可疑，因为这笔收入是伊万卡他作为资讯费用收来的，总的数目是747622美元。那这笔数目呢，恰好是完全等同于 Trump 在同一个时间划去从他的这个公司里面划出去作为抵税的一个数目，同时也是他的这个抵税的这个名称也是说我是用来付资讯费的。所以简而言之，他是付了747622美元给了他女儿做咨询费，来帮助他避税，来帮助他逃税。好，那最后两点呢，其实《纽约时报》还发现呢，特朗普他的很多很赚钱的，在大家心目中很赚钱的这些业务呢，其实都是在慢慢的减弱的。那真正很赚钱的倒是特朗普他这个Trump 的这个牌子，他的这个牌子呢，包括他以前在电视台的这个真人秀 The Apprentice 倒是一直给他进行了不少的收入，但是同时呢，这些收入也在慢慢的递减。比方说《时报》已经报道，那他现在已经将近亏损了1.75个亿美元在这个 Apprentice 这个节目之上。最后一点呢，我觉得好消息就是说，尽管 Trump 他在争取连任，但是在2022年的时候，不是纽约，就是特朗普他会有很多的他的这个债务到期，其中这一笔债务呢，就是在纽约的这个 Trump Tower 呢是在纽约一共有1亿美元的这个房屋贷款它在2022年会到期，所以呢，当然，《纽约时报》呢，我接下来刚刚总结的只是《纽约时报》在9月27号的一些第一步的这个一些关于特朗普报税的一些情况。接下来，《时报》还会有更多的这个信息出来。好的，那就先跟大家讲到这里关于
好，那谢谢非常感谢马贝给我们。对，那非常感谢马贝给我们的一个就是非常详尽的一个总结哈。那我也想听听呢，其他的嘉宾对这个有没有什么你们自己的一些看法，或者一些就是延伸的一些要增加的一些东西。你们要是讲话的话，就一定要 unmute yourself 啊。
我补充几点哈，马贝说的挺好，总结挺全面。就是说这个，但是就是总统这个 release
稍微打断一下哈，张斌，你的声音可能得再增加高一点，或者你可能得
现在怎么样？
好，
现在 OK。
好，现在好多了，你说继续说。
给这个办税表，他是从尼克松开始，因为尼克松那一年他也是偷税，对吧？他那年好像也是交了700多块钱的税，然后被人发现了，对吧？就从那时候开始。他被抓住了，对吧？我们从尼克松到这个川普这两个历史上最比较差的总统川普大概是最差的，就是一个开始，他到这儿他就结束了，对吧？他属于就是从尼克松以来，尼克松以前总统是不用报税表的，对吧？因为以前总统就觉得自己大家还是比较有这个integrity， 对吧？但是相信他，但从他作假之后被抓住了，然后就开始给这个税表，对吧？而且川普他就是说他丢钱，他不是说几百万几千万，他是几亿，对吧？他所有的这些 golf course 基本上都是在输钱的。都数上亿块钱的生意，然后他其实在 Apprentice 里面也赚了几亿块钱，他那个几亿块钱其实都已经填到他那个 golf 的那个亏钱的无底洞里去了，对吧？然后刚才说那个伊万卡了，他就是说川普给他这个 consulting 费，对吧？咨询费，他为什么给他呢？有人也说可能是因为伊万卡那边输钱了，对吧？如果他把那个钱给他之后，他那笔钱又能去补他那个洞，所以呢，就最后就 end up， 他1分钱都不用交，就算他伊万卡拿那个，他本来是拿的别人钱，他应该交税，对吧？但因为他生意他输钱了，所以他那个拿到的钱也不用交，所以他那个特殊的数字 当有人怀疑他是不是就是去填他那边那个洞去了，我们现在不是很清楚。
对，正好你说到这一点哈，我也想补充一下呢，就说其实呢，你要是说我就想作为Trump 来讲，他说我就想雇我的女儿来当我的顾问，这个本来呢也是无可厚非的但是呢，如果你是拿这个比如说你是想转给你女儿一些钱，按说如果他要是不是顾问的话，你转给你女儿一些钱，那么是要交这个遗产税的，那你像这种的话呢，就是说，财产转移的这种呢，就是你反正是要涉及到那个是要涉及到税用的，对，他还没死，sorry。
对，这个我来说一下吧。对，是这样的，就是说，在一个公司呢，这种所谓的顾问费是一定付给你公司员工以外的这种独立的这种顾问。那么独立的顾问呢，拿到可以给这个钱，但是呢，如果是作为公司你拿工资的员工，你是不可以拿这种咨询费的，对，不可以拿这种咨询费的，这个是有明文的这种税法方面的规定。然后另外一点，我想补充一下，就是说关于这个。
等一下，所以呢，彭大，你说到这一点，也就是说呢，伊万卡实际上当时是在 Trump 的这个机构里面，他是拿工资的雇员，对吧？所以作为拿工资的雇员，他就不可以再收取咨询费。
对，
好，你继续说。
对，然后我还想说，就是说，
李春贵，你想补充什么吗？在这点上，
我这个等那个彭大说完了吧。
好的，彭大，你继续说。
对，就是说我还接下来有几点我想说的是，他的这个tax return 呢，就看起来非常的值得怀疑。也还有一点就是他把就是说那个 Junior 他儿子的那个律师费，就是关于内幕的调查的律师费，他也拿去充这个作为公司的费用拿来抵税，这个是有很大的嫌疑，因为第一这个 Junior 的这个穆勒的调查的相关律师费跟他的生意毫无关系，这个是关于竞选方面是个人的，你不可以拿去抵的。另外呢，他还有一笔钱，就是一个是伊万卡的这个9万多的那个化妆费和他的那个头发护理费都是7万多，加起来10来万吧，他也拿去抵税。这个以前在美国是可以的，但是在2011年以后有明文的这个相关的规定出来说，这种费用是不可以拿来抵税的。所以呢，这个也是涉嫌，我们讲涉嫌啊，这个违反这个税法。对，然后最可疑的就是说他现在欠的这笔钱，呢其实是那种叫个人担保的信用贷款，就是说意思就是说呢，这些钱其实不是银行贷出来的，但是是通过银行贷出来的。那么在银行背后的这些人是谁？现在不知道。对吧？就有可能是国外的人，就打个比方说，我也是个亿万富豪，那么我有一笔钱，我放在这个银行，银行帮我管理，然后银行就会告诉我，就是说，哎，这有这么多人要来借钱，然后你愿不愿意把这些钱借给他，对吧？或者我告诉这个银行说，哎，我把这笔钱我愿意通过你们然后借给他，对吧？那么这个问题就在这儿，就是说你这些钱欠了这么多4亿多美金。到底是谁在后面给你放贷？而且这个贷款的话，确实是有非常大的可疑。而且我觉得你作为一个联邦的官员，你如果有这么多的贷款，你不知道是谁贷给你的话，那个一般来说你的这个我们讲的那个背景调查是过不去的。
这个其实可能《纽约时报》都已经有了，是不是他还没有报道出来而已？因为根据
这个我来帮你们补充几句吧。我觉得呢，就是说是这样，这个真是活到老学到老，知道吧？我觉得就是说，实际上我们应该抱着一个学习的目的。其实生活中呢，从别人身上去学习一些知识，这是还是很重要的。其实我觉得呢，你们这儿有些东西都是在猜来猜去哈。IRS 每年都会 audit Trump， 而尤其现在 audit 的更多。如果 IRS 不说什么，我觉得这些东西的话都是合理的。就是说而且他的税表都是经过律师都看多少个律师去看过的，是吧？另外呢，我觉得呢，就是说这个税表的问题，实际上2016年 实际上就已经出来了。你想2016年也是大概是大选，就是这个 debate 的头一天是吧出来了，然后这个也是这么轰轰扬扬的。另外呢，这个当选以后他的税表，他当选以后他税表实际上还是在被 IRS 这个 audit 的过程中，他当然不能 release 了，是吧？然后这个750块钱这事儿啊，其实我们大家知道，我们报税的时候都有一条，就是要求你叫预先报税，因为什么呢？如果你在报税的当天，是吧？你在那个交税表当天，如果你是有很多要交很多税的话，你要交很多的 penalty。你比如说你要 suppose 你要交4个 million 的税，是吧？那大概我估计你要交大概，因为他会差着你的 tax， 哎，你不是那个就是交那个 interest
吃纳金嘛，
高的是吧？对你这个你要是，实际上这就是说。这也是川普聪明的地方。实际上很多也不是他聪明的地方，实际上很多人都这样，像我自己我也这样。因为呢，你要不预先报税的话，你比如
那个我可以打断一下吗？我可以打断你一下吗？就是说我想你可能搞错了一个事实哈。现在他正在和这个国税局在这个有一个纠纷，这纠纷是什么呢？就是说他有7000多万的税。他09年从这个国税局拿走的，现在国税局让他还，他们现在正在有一个纠纷，这样说我不知道，现在没有人知道这个到底到哪一步了。因为现在所有的
这个东西你在猜的这个
就不是我猜的，这个不是我猜的，这个是报道里边有的。而且现在说国税局说加上滞纳金，他这个钱可能是要欠1亿多的，对吧？
那会儿
我们不能去，我们不去猜。
等一会儿我说这等一下，我会说这个，让我说完了，我会说这1亿欠款的这个问题啊。然后这理发抵税呢，实际上很正常。如果他这个去理发之前，他会见他的这个客户，这个理发就是可以报税的，
不可以。这个理发的这个理发已经在2011年里边被这个国税局在国税局的那个税法庭
这个
着装
能不能可以不是你说的 ？OK， 咱们等以后等 IRS 再说。
对，没错，就是 IRS 实际上它已经2011年的事情，
这都是小事，这都是小事，无所谓。
听我说，这不是小事，你小事的话拿出来说了干什么？是不是？你不就是说的话，不就是想抖了吗？是吧？
不是，现在我们在说他那个，我们在说他的背后的那个欠的4亿多块钱的那个金主是谁，对吧？
听我说，我给你解释啊，这就是说
你都知道了。
哎，不是，我说这就是学习的过程，你知道吧？其实因为什么呢？我知道他是搞大建筑，人家是做大买卖的，我是做小买卖的，是不是？我就是出租房这个问题啊，我知道咱们华人中间都好多人这个出租房，是吧？你出租房，你比如你花10万块钱买一个出租房，你可以 depreciate 说30年，27.5年，是吧？你那个然后再加上这个修啊，再拿什么一开支，实际上的话，最后然后你这个每年需要报的税就是低于 zero， 这是很正常的，这不是我来编出来的，这就是合理的，因为你那个一 depreciation 的话，每年的话要交出的话，这个好几万块钱，然后呢？这个川普案的亏损，你说他应该交好多税是吧？但是你说他每年要亏损几亿的话，他那个 income 跟收入就相抵了，他你让他
还有，我想告诉你，我怕待会儿忘记了，对，我怕待会儿忘记了。
哎，你先等会儿，记着啊，记着那个阿拉辛帮他记着啊，是不是？其实这个东西的话这都是合理的过程。其实我觉得就是关键是这老百姓就是不懂这些 business 的人，他听了都觉得很奇怪。另外还有一件事就是给女儿的钱，我让我女儿帮我做账。
张斌，你在 mute yourself。
我说是他说的合理的 ，LS 还没说合理 ，OK， 这个还没有结论，所以你不能说它是合理的。
你听我说，你听我说，这给女儿的钱，我女儿帮我做账。我要给他钱的，知道吧？我女儿帮我做账，因为我这个
不是给女儿的问题，这个是违反。
It's in consulting fee. It's
就是铁道零碎件，我给我
女儿给我，我就
一个公司的对第一，我已经讲得很清楚了，一个公司的员工你在拿工资的时候，你是不可以拿这个咨询费的，这个是 IRS 的规定。好吧，我们也不去讲了。然后，
你像那个谁，你像那个像那个，
你如果连我觉得对我们争论这个没有意义。我还想告诉你，就是说他的 financial disclosure， 他写他挣了4亿，但是他的税表显示他亏了4000多万，你去信哪一个？我问你。然后第一，第二，我说了，我们现在不要谈这些他的税什么的问题，我们就谈他4亿。的欠款背后到底是谁在放贷给他？你想不想知道？作为我们美国公民，你应不应该？如果有俄罗斯在插手，他借的是普京的钱，你想不想知道？如果他拿的是中共的钱，你想不想知道？
这个美国这些当总统的、当国务卿的，是不是？从这个 Hillary， 从那个 Bill Clinton 这些人，他们都待了那么多年，像克林顿的这个什么克林顿基金，是吧？他们就是说都从国外拿钱，他们这些钱的话，你说谁去调查或者在克林顿？
这个都是他们，这个都是他们在这个之后的问题，而且他们不是在欠钱的问题。现在我想问一下，你想不想知道这个是谁在背后欠钱，对吧？他借的钱不一样，不一样。
我来讲一点，好吧？其实有一点比较关键的，就是说这个钱他就是说他有可能是有2套 book， 对吧？有2个账本。一个账本是他去申请贷款的，他就吹嘘他的财产，对吧？一个账本他是报税的，他就说他的财产很低，为了少交税，对吧？这个东西是违法的。所以如果是说，let me finish，OK。如果这2个账本能够找到，口吻说是他有的，口吻说他有2个账本 ，OK， 这2个就属于 financial fraud，OK， 我们不说别的。这个就属于欺骗 ，OK， 这个是要坐牢的。
我给你讲讲我的例子啊，出租房。那你说我我把这个房就是招租客的时候，我敢说我这个房子马上就要
那个 Chuck， 我们不要讲你的例子，我们也不讲我的例子，我们就讲他的吧。我们在讲 Trump。
你这财产太少了。
我们确实，我们不讲别人的例子。等一下啊，大家等一下，我们不讲别人的例子，因为呢，我们现在就是就把 Trump 能给讲清楚就行了。因为别人的例子呢，没有那么大的那个类比性。现在呢，其实哈，我们现在哈，因为还剩2分钟了，就是说我快的想把咱们这个也给结束一下哈，马上就要开始辩论会了。那我想呢，我知道就是说，实际上呢。现在确实双方吵的这个沸沸扬扬的，那最容易能够出来辟谣的是谁呢？就是Trump 自己本身，因为呢 Trump 呢他其实最容易干的就是说是我把真正的税表拿给大家看，并且我可以跟大家来说明一些情况。那但是他不拿给大家看呢，他总是有一个理由说，因为我在被 audit， 我在被 audit， 所以我不能够拿出来给大家看。但实际上呢，税务局已经说了 ，IRS 已经说了，其实没有这么样一个规定，所以他其实可以随时拿出来给大家看，并且现在已经假的都出来了，他还怕什么？他就应该来辟谣。那他为什么不辟谣？这个也是大家一个关心的问题，对吧？其实我觉得对于李春贵如果我也是支持他的话，我也是希望他应该自己亲自站出来辟谣。第二个呢，我觉得刚才我也听懂了，就是像彭娜说的呢，就是如果伊万卡他是你的那个员工，拿钱的员工，你就不能这边拿着钱，这边拿着咨询费，所以呢，这个是可疑的。然后第3个呢是如果他背后的金主确实是一些国外的一些不明的一些机构，比如说普京，比如说反正什么人吧。像这样的情况下，如果我们对，正是因为就是我们就是瞎猜，所以我觉得Trump应该堵住所有人的嘴，别让大家再继续瞎猜了。然后呢，等一下啊，那我先给说完啊，所以呢，其实这个最重要的是什么呢？就是说人们现在比较心里恐慌，我觉得也有恐慌的道理。正是因为呢，就是说别人有一些对这个总统到底他是否有一些背后的金主。 拿着他的小辫子。因为呢，这种情况下哈，比如说现在不是 Trump， 如果是比如说是 Pompeo， 如果是什么任何的其他的人，他如果是拿着国家的 security clearance 的话，他如果想申请security clearance 的话，他如果有国外的金主带给他钱的话，这个他是不 security clearance 他都过不了。但是呢，当然 Trump 我们都知道他是肯定是有国家的 security， 他作为一个总统，他是有国家的 security clearance 的话，对是，所以呢，就是大家就很觉得就是比较害怕，不知道他是否有什么国外的人拿着他的小辫子。但是呢，这个所以呢，这也是为什么就是在很多这种情况下不明的情况下呢，而且呢自己本身又是平时说大话，可能在公众面前缺少 integrity， 为了让大家能够还尊重你们这个总统的话，这也就是为什么从尼克松那个时候开始是要求总统要 release 你的税表。其实他要早点 release 的话呢，可能也就没这个问题了。那好，我们现在呢就是总统辩论会马上就开始了，我们就一起来在这里来观战哈。这次辩论会呢，据说是没有广告的，为了不干扰大家来听 Trump 和 Biden 这两边的这个辩论呢，我们中间就先不插播这个评论了，因为一插播这个评论，有些人就很想听他们真正的原本的辩论哈。那么辩论会之后呢，我们就会马上切入嘉宾的评论。我们这次会后参与评论的嘉宾里呢，既有华一代，也会有华二代，既有进步派也有保守派，那希望大家不要错过。好，那我们现在呢，请我们的technical director 技术总监把我们的屏幕呢先切到Fox News， 他们我们来看一看，一起来看一看这次总统辩论会。好，那你好，我们刚才看了一下那边的，那边现在还没有开始，看来他们那边也拖延点时间了。那好，那我们现在呢，我们一边随时关注着那边的进展哈，看看那边什么时候开始，我们就切换过去。那现在呢，我们还有一点点时间呢，你们现在谁要是还有刚才没有说完的，想意犹未尽的哈，赶紧你们说一下吧。
对，其实我最希望的现在就是川普把他的那个税表拿出来打我们的脸。你知道吧？就免得就是挺川的人啊，那很辛苦，就是帮忙想各种办法。我们也没有说
这个，就是你没当过导演，你没当那个彭纳，你没当过导演，当导演。
你这就是你这人一人做事一人当，对吧？他自己犯什么事，让他自己来defend自己干嘛？他最简单的事情，我要你来defend他干什么了？你什么都不知道，你连他是什么都不知道，你来defend他干什么呀？
这就是写小说的人，
你根本没任何权利去defend他。
不是
nothing，
不是我
连有时的东西都没有。
对，我不想当，这跟当导演没有关系，我就当观众就行了，我就想看一看，对吧？
你就什么都不懂的，你去defend他干什么？
不是，你说他要拿出来，不是那个张斌，你说他要拿出来的话，咱们还在这讨论什么呀？是不是？咱就没啥讨论的。
对呀，那就让他拿出来嘛。你就说，
但是
他拿出来，
他希望咱们晚上讨论。
你说什么都不算数，你知不知道？
那你怎么就知道他是希望我们讨论呢？
嘿，我跟你说啊，这个都是人家当过导演的人，演戏
导演你来defend他。
他拿出来的话，
你就是他的傀儡。
好了，那我们现在的那边已经开始了，那我们现在先切换到那边总统辩论会那边啊，一会儿我们还可以回来，之后辩论会之后我们还可以再来继续说。
The Commission has designed the format, 6 roughly 15-minute segments, with 2-minute answers from each candidate to the first question, then open discussion for the rest of each segment. Both campaigns have agreed to these rules. For the record, I decided the topics and the questions in each topic. I can assure you, none of the questions has been shared with the Commission or the two candidates. This debate is being conducted under health and safety protocols designed by the Cleveland Clinic, which is serving as the health security advisor to the commission for all 4 debates. As a precaution, both campaigns have agreed the candidates will not shake hands at the beginning of tonight's debate. The audience here in the hall has promised to remain silent. No cheers, no boos or other interruptions, so we, and more importantly you, can focus on what the candidates have to say. No noise except right now, as we welcome the Republican nominee, President Trump, and the Democratic nominee, Vice President Biden.
How you doing, man? How are you? I'm well.
Gentlemen, a lot of people have been waiting for this night, so let's get going. Our first subject is the Supreme Court. President Trump, you nominated Amy Coney Barrett over the weekend to succeed the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the court. You say the Constitution is clear about your obligation and the Senate's to consider a nominee to the court. Vice President Biden, you say that this is an effort by the president and Republicans to jam through an appointment and what you call an abuse of power. My first question to both of you tonight, why are you right in the argument you make and your opponent wrong? And where do you think a Justice Barrett would take the court? President Trump, in this first segment, you go first, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chris. I will tell you very simply, we won the election. Elections have consequences. We have the Senate, we have the White House, and we have a phenomenal nominee, respected by all, top academic, good in every way, In fact, some of her biggest endorsers are very liberal people from Notre Dame and other places. So I think she's going to be fantastic. We have plenty of time. Even if we did it after the election itself. I have a lot of time after the election, as you know. So I think that she will be outstanding. She's going to be as good as anybody that has served on that court. We really feel that. We have a professor at Notre Dame, highly respected by all, said she's the single greatest student he's ever had. He's been a professor for a long time at a great school. And we won the election, and therefore we have the right to choose her. And very few people knowingly would say otherwise. And by the way, the Democrats, they wouldn't even think about not doing it. If they had, the only difference is they'd try and do it faster. There's no way they would give it up. They had Merrick Garland, but the problem is they didn't have the election, so they were stopped. And probably that would happen in reverse also. Definitely would happen in reverse. So we won the election, and we have the right to do it, Chris.
President Trump, thank you. Same question to you, Vice President Biden. You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, thank you for doing this and looking forward to this, Mr. President.
Thank you, Joe.
The American people have a right to have a say in who the Supreme Court nominee is. And that say occurs when they vote for United States senators and when they vote for the President of the United States. They're not going to get that chance now because we're in the middle of an election already. The election has already started. Tens of thousands of people have already voted. And so the thing that should happen is we should wait. We should wait and see what the outcome of this election is, because that's the only way the American people get to express their view is by who they elect as president and who they elect as vice president. Now, what's at stake here is the president's made it clear he wants to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. He's been running on that, he ran on that, and he's been governing on that. He's in the Supreme Court right now trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which will strip 20 million people from having insurance, health insurance now, if it goes into court. And the justice, and I'm not opposed to the justice, she seems like a very fine person. But she's written before she went on the bench, which is her right, that she thinks that the Affordable Care Act is not constitutional. The other thing that's on the court, and if it's struck down, what happens? Women's rights are fundamentally changed. Once again, a woman could be pay more money because she has a pre-existing condition of pregnancy. They were able to charge a woman more for the same exact procedure a man gets. And that ended when we, in fact, passed the Affordable Care Act. And there's 100 million people who have pre-existing conditions, and they'll be taken away as well. Those pre-existing conditions, the insurance companies are going to love this. And so it's just not appropriate to do this before this election. If he wins the election and the Senate is Democrat or Republican, then he goes forward. If not, we should wait until February.
All right. There aren't 100 million people with pre-existing conditions. As far as the say is concerned, the people already had their say. Okay, Justice Ginsburg said very powerfully, very strongly, at some point, 10 years ago or so, she said a president and the Senate is elected for a period of time, but a president's elected for 4 years. We're not elected for 3 years. I'm not elected for 3 years. So we have the Senate, we have a president.
He's elected to the next
during
election.
that period of time, we have an opening. I'm not elected for 3 years. I'm elected for 4 years. And the 100 million people, Joe, the 100 million people is totally wrong. I don't know where you got that number. The bigger problem that you have is that you're going to extinguish 180 million people with their private health care that they're very happy with.
That's simply not true.
Well, you're certainly going to socialist. You're going to socialist medicine.
We're now into, gentlemen, we're now into open discussion.
Open discussion.
Open discussion. Yes, I agree. Go ahead, Vice President.
Number
Biden.
one, he knows that what I proposed. What I proposed is that we expand Obamacare and we increase it. We do not wipe any, and one of the big debates we had with 23 of my colleagues trying to win the nomination that I won, were saying that Biden wanted to allow people to have private insurance still. They can. They do. They will under my proposal.
It's not what you've said,
But
and it's not what your party has said.
That is simply
your party
a lie.
doesn't say it. Your party wants to go socialist medicine.
My party is
and
me.
socialist
right
healthcare.
now, I am
and
the
they're going to dominate
Party.
you, Joe. You know that.
I am the Democratic Party right now. The platform of the
Not according
Democratic
to
Party
Harris.
is what I, in fact, approved of. What I approved of. Now, here's the deal. The deal is that it's going to wipe out pre-existing conditions. And by the way, the 200,000 people that have died on his watch, how many of those have survived? Well, there's 7 million people that contracted COVID. What does it mean for them going forward if you strike down the Affordable Care Act?
Joe, you've had 308,000 military people dying because you couldn't provide them proper health care in the military. So don't tell me about this.
I'm happy to talk about this.
And if you were here,
Look,
it wouldn't be
the deal.
200, it would be 2 million people because you were very late on the draw. You didn't want me to ban China, which was heavily infected. You didn't want me to ban
All right, gentlemen,
Europe, which
no,
was heavily
Mr. President,
You would have
Mr.
been much
President,
later, Joe.
Mr. President,
much later.
Mr. President.
You're talking about 2 million people.
You're
Mr.
not gonna be able to
President, as
shut
the
him up.
moderator, we are going to talk about COVID in the next segment, but go ahead.
Let me finish. The point is that the president also is opposed to Roe v. Wade. That's on the ballot as well in the court. And so that's also at stake right now. And so the election is already
You don't know it's
begun.
on the ballot. Why is it on the ballot?
Because
Why is
you
it on the
said
ballot? It's not on the ballot.
It's on the ballot in the
I
court.
don't think so.
In the court. Well,
There's nothing happening there.
Donald, would you
And
just
you don't
be quiet
know
for a
her
minute?
view on Roe v. Wade.
I
You don't know her view.
Well, all right. Let's talk. We got a lot to unpack here, gentlemen. We got a lot of time. So on health care, and then we'll come back to Roe v. Wade.
All right.
Mr. President, the Supreme Court will hear a case a week after the election in which the Trump administration, along with 18 state attorneys general, are seeking to overturn
That's right.
Obamacare, to end Obamacare. You have spent the last...
Because they want to give good health care.
If I may ask my question, sir.
Good health care.
Over the last 4 years, you have promised to repeal and replace Obamacare, but you have never in these 4 years come up with a plan, a comprehensive plan to replace Obamacare.
Of course I have.
Well,
I got rid of the individual mandate.
I'm going to give you an opportunity.
I got rid of the individual mandate, which was a big chunk of
comprehensive
Obamacare.
plan.
That is absolutely a big thing. That was the worst part of Obamacare.
Sir.
Chris,
You're
that was the
debating him,
worst
not
part of
me.
Obamacare.
Let me ask my question.
Well, I'll ask Joe.
The
individual mandate was the most unpopular aspect of Obamacare. I got rid of it.
I'd like
and we will protect people with
President, I'm the moderator of this
conditions.
debate, and I would like you to let me ask my question, and then you can answer your
ahead.
question. You, in the course of these 4 years, have never come up with a comprehensive plan to replace Obamacare, and just this last Thursday, you signed a largely symbolic executive order to protect people with pre-existing conditions 5 days before this debate. So my question, sir, is what is the Trump health care plan?
Right. Well, first of all, I guess I'm debating you, not him, but that's okay. I'm not surprised. Let me just tell you something, that there's nothing symbolic. I'm cutting drug prices. I'm going with favored nations, which no president has the courage to do because you're going against Big Pharma. Drug prices will be coming down 80 or 90%. You could have done it during your 47-year period in government, but you didn't do it. Nobody's done it. So we're cutting health care. All of the things that we've done, insulin. I give you an example, insulin. It was destroying families, destroying people. The cost, I'm getting it for so cheap. It's like water, you want to know the truth. So cheap. Take a look at all of the drugs what we're doing, prescription drug prices. We're going to allow our governors now to go to other countries to buy drugs because they pay just a tiny fraction.
As I say, this is open discussion.
No,
let me
but
ask
this
you
is
about,
big. This
you'll
is
be happy,
big stuff.
Sir, you'll be happy. I'm about to pick up on one of your points to ask the vice president, which is he points out that you would like to add a public option to Obamacare, and the argument that he makes and other Republicans make is that that is going to end private insurance.
It is
and
not.
Well, if I can ask you the question, it will
Not
end.
what your party says, by the way.
It will end private insurance and create a government takeover of health care.
It does not. It's only for those people who are so poor they qualify for Medicaid. They can get that free in most states, except governors who want to deny people who are poor Medicaid. Anyone who qualifies for Medicare Medicaid would automatically be enrolled in the public option. The vast majority of the American people would still not be in that option, number one.
Joe, you agreed with Bernie Sanders, who's far left, on the manifesto, we call it, and that gives you socialized medicine.
Look, hey,
Are you saying
I'm not
you
going
didn't
to
agree?
listen to him. The fact of the matter is, I beat Bernie Sanders.
Not by much.
I beat him a whole hell of a lot. I'm here standing facing you, old buddy.
Pocahontas would have left 2 days early. You would have lost every primary.
All he knows how to
on
do
Super
is hurt.
Tuesday. You got very lucky.
Here's the deal. I got very lucky. I'm going to get very lucky tonight as well. And tonight I'm going to make sure, because here's the deal. Here's the deal. The fact is that everything he's saying so far is simply a lie. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
But you
I just want to make sure.
Joe, you're the liar.
I want to make sure.
You graduated last in your class, not first in your class.
I want to make
Mr.
sure.
President, can you let him finish, sir?
No, he doesn't know how to do that. He has,
You'd be surprised.
You picked
You'd be surprised.
the
Go ahead,
wrong
Joe.
guy,
Go,
the wrong
Joe,
night
go.
at the wrong time.
Listen, you agreed with
Here's the
Bernie
deal.
Sanders to the
The
manifesto.
whole idea.
Let him.
There is no manifesto, number
Please
one.
let him speak, Mr.
Number
President.
two.
You just lost the left.
Number two.
You just lost the left. You agreed with Bernie Sanders on a plan
folks,
that's absolutely agreed
folks, do you have
to,
any
and under that
idea
plan,
what
you have
this clown's
socialized,
doing?
They call it
Mr.
Do you
Medicare
have any
President.
socialized medicine.
Mr.
Well,
President.
I tell you what, he is not for any help for people needing health care because he in fact already has cost 10 million people their health care that they had from their employers because of his recession. Number one. Number two, there are 20 million people getting health care through Obamacare now that he wants to take it away. He won't ever look you in the eye and say that's what he wants to do. Take it away.
No, I want to give them better health care at a much lower price because
and by
Obamacare
the way, he doesn't know
is no
how.
good.
He doesn't know how
I've
to do
already
that.
fixed it.
He has never
I've
offered
already
a plan.
fixed it to an extent.
He has
Obamacare,
never done a
as
single
you might
thing.
know, but probably don't.
Gentlemen, you realize if you're both speaking at the same time,
and it's too expensive.
let the president go ahead, sir.
Obamacare is no good. We made it better, and I had a choice to make very early on. We took away the individual mandate. We guarantee pre-existing conditions, but took away the individual mandate. Listen, this is the way it is. And that destroyed, they shouldn't even call it Obamacare. Then I had a choice to make. Do I let my people run it really well or badly? Yeah. If I run it badly, they'll probably blame him, but they'll blame me. But more importantly, I want to help people, okay? I said, you got to run it so well.
That's what he's
and I just had a meeting with them. They said, the problem is no matter how well you run Obamacare, it's a disaster. It's too expensive.
Okay.
Premiums are too high, and it doesn't work.
So
we do want to get rid of it.
Chris,
we want to get rid of it.
I understand it, sir, but I have to give you roughly equal time.
Good.
Please let the vice president talk.
Good.
He has no plan for health care.
Of course we do.
Please.
He sends out wishful thinking. He has executive orders that have no power. He hasn't lowered drug costs for anybody. He's been promising a health care plan since he got elected. He has none, like almost everything else he talks about. He does not have a plan. He doesn't have a plan. And the fact is, this man doesn't know what he's talking about.
All right,
He's
I have one final question for you,
Sure.
Mr. Vice President. If Senate Republicans, we were talking originally about the Supreme Court here, if Senate Republicans go ahead and confirm Justice Barrett, there has been talk about ending the filibuster or even packing the court, adding to the 9 justices there. You call this a distraction by the president, but in fact, it wasn't brought up by the president. It was brought up by some of your Democratic colleagues in the Congress. So my question to you is, you have refused in the past to talk about it. Are you willing to tell the American people tonight whether or not you will support either ending the filibuster or packing the court?
Whatever position I take on that, that'll become the issue. The issue is the American people should speak. You should go out and vote. You're in voting now. Vote and let your senators know how strongly you feel. Vote now.
Are you going to pack the
Make
court?
sure you, in fact, let people know
He doesn't want
you're
to
a
answer the
senator.
question.
I'm not going to answer the question
Why wouldn't you answer that
because
question?
the question
You want to put a lot
is
of
the
new
question
Supreme Court
is
justice,
the
radical
question,
left.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen, who is on your list, Joe?
This
Who's
is
on your
so
list?
right.
Gentlemen, I think
This
we've
is
ended
so
this.
He's going to pack the
unprecedented.
court.
We have,
I'm not going to give a list.
We have ended this segment. We're going to move on to the second segment.
That was really a productive segment, wasn't it? Keep yapping, man.
The people understand, Joe.
They sure
47 years you've done nothing. They understand.
All right. The second subject is COVID-19, which is an awfully serious subject, so let's try to be serious about it. We have had more than 7 million cases of coronavirus in the United States, and more than 200,000 people have died. Even after we produce a vaccine, experts say that it could be months or even years before we come back to anything approaching normal. My question for both of you is, based on what you have said and done so far and what you have said you would do starting in 2021, why should the American people trust you more than your opponent to deal with this public health crisis going forward? In this case, the question goes to you first, sir. 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Good luck. 200,000 dead. As you said, over 7 million infected in the United States. We, in fact, have 4% of the world's population, 20% of the deaths. 40,000 people a day are contracting COVID. In addition to that, about between 750 and 1,000 people a day are dying. When he was presented with that number, he said, it is what it is. Well, it is what it is because you are who you are. That's why it is. The president has no plan. He hasn't laid out anything. He knew all the way back in February how serious this crisis was. He knew it was a deadly disease. What did he do? He's on tape as acknowledging he knew it. He said he didn't tell us or give people a warning of it because he didn't want to panic the American people. You don't panic. He panicked. In addition to that, what did he do? He went in and we were insisting that the people we had on the ground in China should be able to go to Wuhan and determine for themselves how dangerous this was. He did not even ask Xi to do that. He told us what a great job Xi was doing. He said we owe him a debt of gratitude for being so transparent with us. And what did he do then? He then did nothing. He waited and waited and waited. He still doesn't have a plan. I laid out back in March exactly what we should be doing. And I laid out again in July what we should be doing. We should be providing all the protective gear possible. We should be providing the money the House has passed in order to be able to go out and get people the help they need to keep their businesses open schools that cost a lot of money. You should get out of your bunker and get out of the sand trap and get in your golf course and go in the Oval Office and bring together the Democrats and Republicans and fund what needs to be done now to save lives.
So if we would have listened to you.
You have 2 minutes, sir.
If we would have listened to you, the country would have been left wide open. Millions of people would have died, not 200,000. And one person is too much. It's China's fault. It should have never happened. They stopped it from going in, but it was China's fault. And by the way, when you talk about numbers, you don't know how many people died in China. You don't know how many people died in Russia. You don't know how many people died in India. They don't exactly give you a straight count, just so you understand. But if you look at what we've done, I closed it, and you said he's xenophobic. He's a racist, and he's xenophobic because you didn't think I should have closed our country.
Wait a minute. It says 2 minutes.
You didn't think we should have closed our country because you thought it was terrible. You wouldn't have closed it for another 2 months. By my doing it early, in fact, Dr. Fauci said, President Trump saved thousands of lives. Many of your Democrat governors said, President Trump did a phenomenal job. We worked with the governor. Oh, really? Go take a look. The governors said I did a phenomenal job. Most of them said that. In fact, people that would not be necessarily on my side said that. President Trump did a phenomenal job. We did. We got the gowns. We got the masks. We made the ventilators. You wouldn't have made ventilators. And now we're weeks away from a vaccine. We're doing therapeutics already. Fewer people are dying when they get sick. Far fewer people are dying. We've done a great job. The only thing I haven't done a good job, and that's because of the fake news. No matter what you say to them, they give you bad press on it. It's just fake news. They give you good press. They give me bad press because that's the way it is, unfortunately. But let me just tell you something. I don't care. I've gotten used to it. But I'll tell you, Joe, you could never have done the job that we did. You don't have it in your blood. You could have never done that job.
I know how to do the job. I know how to get the job
Well, you didn't do very well in swine flu. H1N1, you were a disaster. Your own chief of staff said you were a disaster.
14,000 people died, not 200,000. There was no economic recession.
Sir, you made a
There
was no recession.
You made a point. Let him answer.
And there was we didn't shut down the economy. This is his economy he's shut down. The reason it's shut down is because, look, you folks at home, how many of you got up this morning and had an empty chair at the kitchen table because someone died of COVID? How many of you were in a situation where you lost your mom or dad and you couldn't even speak to them? You had a nurse holding a phone up so you could, in fact, say goodbye.
You would have lost far more people. Far more people.
And,
you would have been
and by the way,
months late.
your own, his own CDC director says we could lose as many as another 200,000 people between now and the end of the year. And he held up, he said, if we just wear a mask, we can save half those numbers, just a mask. And by the way, in terms of the whole notion of a vaccine, we're for a vaccine, but I don't trust him at all, nor do you. I know you don't. What we trust is a scientist.
You don't
we
trust
Dr.
Johnson
Fauci.
Johnson, Pfizer?
Okay,
by the way,
gentlemen, let me move on to questions about the future, because you both have touched on two of the questions I'm going to ask. Focusing on the future first, President Trump, you have repeatedly either contradicted or been at odds with some of your government's own top scientists. The week before last, the head of the Centers for Disease Control, Dr. Redfield, said it would be summer before the vaccine would become generally available to the public. You said that he was confused and mistaken. Those were your two words.
Yeah.
But Dr. Slaoui, the head of your Operation Warp Speed, has said exactly the same thing. Are they both wrong?
Well, I've spoken to the companies, and we can have it a lot sooner. It's a very political thing because people like this would rather make it political than save lives.
God.
It is a very political thing. I've spoken to Pfizer. I've spoken to all of the people that you have to speak to. We have great Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and others. They can go faster than that by a lot. Become very political because the left, or I don't know if I call them left, I don't know what I call them.
So you're suggesting that the head of your Operation Warp Speed, Dr. Slaoui?
I disagree with him. Yeah, no, I disagree with both of them. And he didn't say that. He said it could be there, but it could also be much sooner. I had him in my office 2 days ago.
He talked about the summer, sir, before it's generally available, just like
he
Dr.
said it's a
Redfield.
possibility that we'll have the answer before November 1st. It could also be after that.
When it's generally available.
Well, we're going to deliver it right away. We have the military all set up. Logistically, they're all set up. We have our military that delivers soldiers, and they can do 200,000 a day. They're going to be delivering.
This is the same man
it's
who
all
told
set
you
up.
by Easter this would be gone away. By the warm weather, it'd be gone. Miraculous, like a miracle. And by the way, maybe you could inject some bleach in your arm, and that would take care of it. This is the same man.
That was said sarcastically, and you know that. That was said sarcastically.
And so here's the deal. This man is talking about a vaccine. Every serious company is talking about maybe having a vaccine done by the end of the year. But the distribution of that vaccine will not occur until sometime beginning or the middle of next year to get it out, if we get the vaccine. And pray God we will. Pray God we will.
Mr. Vice President, I want to pick up, though.
You'll have the vaccine sooner
I want to pick up on this question, though. You say the public can trust the scientists, but they can't trust President Trump. In fact, you said that again tonight. Your running mate, Senator Harris, goes further, saying the public health experts, quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed. Given the fact that polls already show that people are concerned about the vaccine and are reluctant to take it, are you and your running mate, Senator Harris, contributing to that fear?
No more than the question you just asked him. You pointed out. He puts pressure and disagrees with his own scientists.
But you're saying
Everybody
you can't,
knows.
or Senator
And
Harris is saying
no,
you can't trust the scientists.
No, you can trust the scientists. She didn't say that. You can't trust
She said the public health experts, quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed.
Well, that's what he's going to try to do. But there's millions of scientists, there's thousands of scientists out there, like here at this great hospital, that don't work for him. Their job doesn't depend on him. That's not, they're the people, and by the way.
I spoke to the scientists that are in charge.
By the way.
They will have the vaccine very soon.
Let him finish.
Do you believe for a moment what he's telling you in light of all the lies he's told you about the whole issue relating to COVID? He still hasn't even acknowledged that he knew this was happening, knew how dangerous it was going to be back in February, and he didn't even tell you. He's on record as saying it. He panicked or he just looked at the stock market, one of the two, because guess what? A lot of people died, and a lot more are going to die unless he gets a lot smarter, a lot quicker.
Mr. President?
Did you use the word smart? So you said you went to Delaware State, but you forgot the name of your college. You didn't go to Delaware State. You graduated either the lowest or almost the lowest in your class. Don't ever use the word smart with me. Don't ever use that word.
Oh, give me a break.
Because you know what? There's nothing smart about you, Joe. 47 years, you've done nothing.
Let's have this debate.
And if you would have had, let me just tell you something, Joe.
No,
if you would have had the charge of what I was put through, I had to close the greatest economy in the history of our country. And by the way, now it's being built again.
See,
and it's
We're going to
going
get
up
to the
fast.
economy in the next segment, sir.
Okay.
It's going up fast.
Okay.
Look forward to talking.
When it comes to how the virus has been handled so far, the two of you have taken very different approaches, and this is going to affect how the virus is handled going forward by whichever of you ends up becoming the next president. I want to quickly go through several of those. Reopenings. Vice President Biden, you have been much more reluctant than President Trump about reopening the economy and schools. Why, sir?
Because he doesn't have a plan. If I were running, I know what the plan is. You've got to provide these businesses the ability to have the money to be able to reopen with the PPE as well as with the sanitation they need. You have to provide them plastic.
Tell that to Nancy Pelosi.
Well, he's just shush for a minute.
Tell it to Nancy Pelosi. And Schumer,
by the
Brian
way,
Chuck.
Nancy Pelosi and Schumer, they have a plan. He won't even meet with them. The Republicans won't meet with him in the Senate. And he sits in his golf course. And I mean, literally, think about it.
You probably play more than I do, Joe.
What about this question of reopenings and the fact?
Well, he wants to shut down this country, and I want to keep it open. And we did a great thing by shutting it down. Wait a minute, Joe. Let me shut you down for a second, Joe, just for 1 second. He wants to shut down the country. We just went through it. We had to because we didn't know anything about the disease. Now we found that elderly people with heart problems and diabetes and different problems are very, very vulnerable. We learned a lot. Young children aren't. Even younger people aren't. We've learned a lot. But he wants to shut it down. More people will be hurt by continuing. If you look at Pennsylvania, if you look at certain states that have been shut down, they have Democrat governors all. One of the reasons they're shut down is because they want to keep it shut down until after the election on November 3rd.
I want to move on to another
because
subject.
it's a
I want to move
political
on to another
thing.
subject.
But those states are not doing well that are shut down right now.
Respond to that.
President Trump, you have begun to increasingly question the effectiveness of masks as a disease preventer. And in fact, recently you have cited the issue of waiters touching their masks and touching plates. Are you questioning
the efficacy
of
masks? You have to understand, if you look, I mean, I have a mask right here. I put a mask on, when I think I need it. Tonight, as an example, everybody's had a test, and you've had social distancing and all of the things that you have to. But I wear masks when needed. When needed, I wear masks.
Okay, let me ask.
I don't wear masks like him. Every time you see him, he's got a mask. He could be speaking 200 feet away from it, he shows up with the biggest mask I've ever seen. I will say this.
Vice President Biden, go ahead, sir.
Look, the way to open businesses is give them the wherewithal to be able to open. We provided money. The Congress.
But I was asking you, sir, about masks.
Well, masks make a big difference. His own head of the CDC said if we just wore masks between now, everybody wore masks in social distance between now and January, we'd probably save up to 100,000 lives. It matters.
And they've also said the opposite. They've also said the opposite.
No serious person said the opposite.
They've also said, well, look
serious
at Dr. Fauci. Dr. Fauci said the opposite.
He did not
I
say
want to
the
ask you, we got
He
a
said
little
very
bit more than a
strongly,
minute left in this
masks
segment.
are not good. Then he changed his mind. He said masks are good. I'm okay with masks.
I want to ask you both about one last subject, because your different approaches has even affected the way that you have campaigned. President Trump, you're holding large rallies with crowds packed together, thousands of people.
Outside.
Outside, yes, sir, agreed. Vice President Biden, you are holding much smaller events with...
Because nobody will show up.
People with...
Well, it's true. Nobody shows up to his rallies.
All right. In any case, why you holding the big rallies? Why you not? You go first, sir.
Because people want to hear what I have to say. I mean,
But are you
I've
not
done
worried
a great
about it
job
spreading
as a
disease?
president, and I'll have 35,000 people show up at airports. We use airports.
Are you
for
not worried
hangars,
about
and we
the
have a
disease
lot of
issues,
people.
sir?
Well, so far, we have had no problem whatsoever. It's outside. That's a big difference, according to the experts. And we do them outside. We have tremendous crowds, as you see. I mean, and literally on 24 hours' notice. And Joe does the circles and has 3 people someplace.
Okay.
By the way, did you see
sir.
one of the last big rallies he has? And a reporter came up to him to ask him a question. He said, no, stand back. Put on your mask. Put on a mask. Have you been tested? I'm way far away from those other people. That's what he said. I'm going to be okay. He's not worried about you. He's not worried about the people out there breathing in one another.
We've had no negative
cheek to
effect.
jowl. No negative effect.
We've had no negative effect. And we've had 35,000, 40,000 people at these rallies.
Just quickly finish up, because I want to move on to our next.
Yes, I would. He's been totally irresponsible the way in which he has handled the social distancing and people wearing masks, basically encouraged them not to.
All right.
He's a fool on this.
If you could get the crowds, you would have done the same thing. But you can't. Nobody cares.
Gentlemen, can we move on to the
cares.
Gentlemen, can we move on to the economy?
Yes.
The economy is, I think it's fair to say, recovering faster than expected from the shutdown.
Much faster.
In the second quarter, the unemployment rate fell to 8.4% last month. The Federal Reserve says the hit to growth, which is going to be there, is not going to be nearly as big as they had expected. President Trump, you say we are in a V-shaped recovery. Vice President Biden, you say it's more of a K-shape. What difference does that mean to the American people in terms of the economy? President Trump, in this segment, you go first.
So we built the greatest economy in history. We closed it down because of the China plague. When the plague came in, we closed it down, which was very hard psychologically to do. He didn't think we should close it down, and he was wrong. And again, 2 million people would be dead now instead of still 204,000 people is too much. One person is too much. Should have never happened from China. But what happened is we closed it down, and now we're reopening, and we're doing record business. We had 10.4 million people in a 4-month period that we've put back into the workforce. That's a record the likes of which nobody's ever seen before. And he wants to close down he will shut it down again. He will destroy this country. You know, a lot of people, between drugs and alcohol and depression, when you start shutting it down, you take a look at what's happening at some of your Democrat-run states where they have these tough shutdowns. And I'm telling you, it's because they don't want to open it. One of them came out last week. You saw that. Oh, we're going to open up on November 9th. Why November 9th? Because it's after the election. They think they're hurting us by keeping them closed. They're hurting people. People know what to do. They can social distance. They can wash their hands. They can wear masks. They can do whatever they want. But they got to open these states up. When you look at North Carolina, and these governors are under siege, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and a couple of others, you got to open these states up. It's not fair. You're talking about it's like being in prison. And you look at what's going on with divorce, look at what's going on with alcoholism and drugs. It's a very, very sad thing. And he'll close down the whole country. This guy will close down the whole country and destroy our country. Our country is coming back incredibly well, setting records as it does it. We don't need somebody to come in and say, let's shut it down.
All right. Your 2 minutes, sir. We're now moved to you. As I said, posing the question, the president says it's a V-shaped recovery. You say it's a K-shaped recovery. What's the difference?
The difference is millionaires and billionaires like him in the middle of the COVID crisis have done very well. Billionaires have made another $300 billion because of his profligate tax proposal, and he only focused on the market. But you folks at home, you folks living in Scranton and Claymont and all the small towns and working class towns in America, how well are you doing? This guy paid a total of $750 in taxes.
Sir, wait, no, sir, it's just wrong statement. Yeah, I understand. You've agreed to the 2 minutes, so please let him have it.
Do I get my time back? The fact is that he has, in fact, worked on this in a way that he's going to be the first president of the United States to leave office having fewer jobs in his administration than when he became president. Fewer jobs than when he became president. First one in American history. Secondly, the people who have lost their jobs are those people who have been on the front lines, those people who have been saving our lives, those people who have been out there dying, people who've been putting themselves in the way to make sure that we could all try to make it. And the idea that he is insisting that we go forward and open when you have almost half the states in America with a significant increase in COVID deaths and COVID cases in the United States of America. And he wants to open it up more. Why does he want to open it up? Why doesn't he take care of the American? You can't fix the economy until you fix the COVID crisis. And he has no intention of doing anything about making it better for you all at home in terms of your health and your safety. Schools, why aren't schools open? Because it costs a lot of money to open them safely. You know, they were going to give, his administration was going to give the teachers and school students masks. And then they decided, no, couldn't do that because it's not a national emergency. Not a national emergency. They've done nothing to help small businesses. Nothing. They're closing. 1 in 6 is now gone. He ought to get on the job and take care of the needs of the American people so we can open safely.
All right. Your time is up, sir. Well, we are going to get to...
I have to respond to that.
Well, you both had 2 minutes, sir.
Excuse me, he made a statement.
So did you.
People want their schools, people want their schools open. They don't want to be shut down. They don't want their state shut down. They want their restaurants. I look at New York. It's so sad what's happening in New York. It's almost like a ghost town. And I'm not sure it can ever recover what they've done in New York. People want their places open. They want to get back to their lives. They'll be careful, but they want their schools open. I'm the one that brought back football. By the way, I brought back Big Ten football. It was me, and I'm very happy to do it. And the people of Ohio are very proud of me. And you know how I found out? When he took
gentlemen, we're going to get to your economic plans going forward in a moment. But first, Mr. President, as you well know, there's a new report that in 2016, the year you were elected president, and 2017, your first year as president, that you paid $750 a year in federal income tax each of those years. I know that you pay a lot of other taxes, but I'm asking you the specific question. Is it true that you paid $750 in federal income taxes each of those 2 years?
I paid millions of dollars in taxes, millions of dollars of income tax. And let me just tell you, there was a story in one of the papers. I paid $38 million 1 year. I paid $27 million.
Show us your tax returns.
I went... you'll see it as soon as it's finished. You'll see it. You know, if you want to go to the Board of Elections. There's a 118-page or so report that says everything I have, every bank I have, I'm totally under-leveraged because the assets are extremely good, and we have a very, I built a great company.
I'm asking you a specific question, which is...
let me tell you...
I understand all of that. I understand all of that. No, Mr. President.
Go ahead.
I'm asking you a question. Will you tell us how much you paid in federal income taxes in 2016 and 2017?
Millions of dollars.
You paid millions of dollars?
Millions of dollars,
So
yes.
not $750?
Millions of dollars, and you'll get to see it. And you'll get to see it. But let me just tell you, Chris, let me just tell you something, that it was the tax laws. I don't want to pay tax. Before I came here, I was a private developer. I was a private business people. Like every other private person, unless they're stupid, they go through the laws, and that's what it is. He passed a tax bill that gave us all these privileges for depreciation and for tax credits. We build a building and we get tax credits, like the hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue. You get a massive, which, by the way, was given to me by the Obama administration, if you can believe that. Now, the man got fired right after that happened. But
Vice President Biden, you want to respond?
Yeah, I do want to respond. Look, the tax code that made him put him in a position that he pays less tax than a school teacher makes on the money a school teacher makes is because of him he says he's smart because he can take advantage of the tax code. And he does take advantage of the tax code. That's why I'm going to eliminate the Trump tax cuts. And I'm going to eliminate those tax cuts and make sure that we invest in the people who, in fact, need the help. People out there need help.
But why didn't you do it over the last 25 years?
Because you weren't president. Because you weren't president screwing things up.
You were a senator. And
You're
by
the
way,
worst
you were
president America has ever had.
Hey,
Come
Joe,
on.
let me just tell you, Joe, I've done more in 47 months. I've done more than you've done in 47 years, Joe. We've done things that you never even thought of doing, including fixing the broken military that you gave me, including taking care of your vets.
Mr. President, we're talking about the economy. I'd like to ask you about your plans going forward because, Mr. Vice President, your economic plan, if you were to be elected president, focuses a lot on big government, big taxes, big spending. I want to focus first on the taxes. You propose more than $4 trillion over a decade in new taxes on individuals making more than $400,000 a year and on corporations. President Trump says that that kind of an increase in taxes is going to hurt the economy as it's just coming out of a recession.
Well, just take a look at what as the analysis done by Wall Street firms points out that my economic plan would create 7 million more jobs than his in 4 years, number one. And number two, it would create an additional $1 trillion in economic growth because it would be about buying American. That we're going to make this federal government spend $600 billion a year on everything from ships to steel to buildings and the like. And under my proposal, we're going to make sure that every penny of that has to be made by a company
But respectfully,
in America.
sir, I'm talking about taxes, not spending.
By the way, I'm going to eliminate a significant number of the tax. I'm going to make the corporate tax 28%. It shouldn't be 21%. You have 91 companies, in the Fortune 500 who don't pay a single penny in tax, making billions of dollars.
Why didn't you do it before when you were vice president with Obama?
Because you, in fact, passed that. That was your tax proposal.
I got it done. And you know what happened?
Yeah, you got it done.
Our economy boomed like it's never boomed
the economy
before.
is busted.
Mr. President, let me pick up on that. You would continue your free market approach, lower taxes, more deregulation, correct?
Not lower taxes for the American people.
Excuse me.
But in Obama's, you talk about the economy booming, it turns out that in Obama's final 3 years as president, more jobs were created, 1.5 million more jobs than in the first 3 years of your presidency.
They had the slowest recovery economic recovery since 1929. It was the slowest recovery. Also, they took over something that was down here. All you had to do is turn on the lights and you pick up a lot. But they had the slowest economic recovery since 1929. Let me tell you about the stock market. When the stock market goes up, that means jobs. It also means 401ks. If you got in, if you ever became president with your ideas, you want to terminate my taxes, I'll tell you what, you'll lose half of the companies that have poured in here will leave, and plenty of companies that are already here, they'll leave for other places. They will leave, and you will have a depression, the likes of which you've never seen.
Look, we inherited the worst recession short of a depression in American history. I was asked to bring it back. We were able to have an economic recovery that created the jobs you're talking about. We handed him a booming economy. He blew it.
It wasn't
booming.
Blew it.
He blew it.
It wasn't booming. It was the weakest recovery since 1929.
Is it fair to say he blew it when fact, there was record low unemployment before COVID?
Yeah, but because what he did, even before COVID, manufacturing went in the hole. Excuse
me, Chris. Wait.
Number two.
Chris.
Number three.
They said it would take. No, you're on number two.
No.
Chris. They said it would take a miracle to bring back manufacturing. I brought back 700,000 jobs. They brought back nothing. They gave up on manufacturing. Part of my standard fare.
I'm the guy that brought back the automobile industry.
All right, let him.
We brought back. I was asked to bring back Chrysler and General Motors. We brought them back right here in the state of Ohio and Michigan. He blew it. They're gone. He blew it. And in fact, they're going.
Ohio had the best year it's ever had last year. Michigan had the best year they've ever had.
That is not
Many
true.
car companies came in from Germany, from Japan, went to Michigan, went to Ohio.
They're not having
And they didn't come in with you.
Mr. Vice President, go ahead.
And so you take a look at what he's actually done. He's done very little. His trade deals are the same way. He talks about these great trade deals. You know, he talks about the art of the deal. China's perfected the art of the steal. We have a higher deficit with China now than we did before. We have the highest trade deficit
China
with
ate
Mexico.
your lunch, down 18%. China ate your lunch, Joe, and no wonder your son goes in and he takes out billions of dollars, to manage. He makes millions of dollars. And also, while we're at it, why is it, just out of curiosity, the mayor of Moscow's wife gave your son $3.5 million? What did he do to deserve it? What did he do with Burisma to deserve $183,000?
None of that is true.
Let him answer.
None of that is true.
Oh, really? He didn't get $3.5 million?
Mr. President,
Mr.
President, please.
Totally discredited. Totally discredited. And by the way,
well, wait, he didn't get $3.5 million, Joe?
Mr. Vice,
he got $3.5 million.
It is not true.
Oh, really?
Mr. President, it's an open discussion, please.
It's a fact.
Well, you have raised an issue. Let the Vice President answer.
Discredited.
Did Burisma pay him $183,000 a month with no experience in energy?
Mr. President,
my son did nothing wrong at Burisma.
I think he did.
Mr. President, let him answer.
He doesn't want to let me answer because he knows I have the truth. His position has been totally, thoroughly discredited.
By who? The media?
By everybody. Well, by the media, by our allies, by the World Bank, by everyone has discredited. Matter of fact, even the people who testified under oath.
So let me ask you this, Joe.
No, go ahead, Mr. I'm listening to you.
He got $3.5 million from Moscow.
He testified under oath in his administration, said, I did my job and I did it very well.
Oh,
I
really?
did it
I'd
honorably.
like to know who they are.
Well, I'll give you the list of the people who testified.
No, go ahead, sir.
Sure, you've already fired most of them because they did a good job.
Some people don't do a good job. With you,
go ahead. Wait a minute. You get the final word, Mr.
Well, it's hard to get any word in with this clown. Excuse me.
Hey, let me just say, Joe.
No. I'm Mr. President.
$3.5 million, Joe.
That is simply
Why did he deserve $3.5 million from Moscow?
Look, here's the deal. We want to talk about families and ethics. I don't want to do that. I mean, his family we could talk about all night. His family's already...
My family lost a fortune by coming down and helping us with government.
And that's such a...
Mr. President.
Every single one of them lost a fortune.
This is not about my family or his family. It's about your family, the American people. He doesn't... That's not true. It doesn't want to talk about what you need, you, the American people. It's about you. That's what we're talking about here.
All right, that's the end of the segment. We're moving on.
He didn't take them.
Well,
Vice President, no.
Can I be honest? It's a very important
question. Try to be honest.
He stood up.
No, the answer to the question is no.
Ukraine.
No, sir.
With $1 billion, if you
that
get rid
is
of
absolutely not true.
You're going to have
true.
Gentlemen. I hate to raise my voice, but it seems to be, why should I be different than the two of you? So here's the deal.
Good point.
We have 6 segments. We have ended that segment. We're going to go to the next segment. In that segment, you each are going to have 2 uninterrupted moments. In those 2 uninterrupted minutes, Mr. President, you can say anything you want. I'm going to ask a question about race, but if you want to answer about something else, go ahead. But I think that the country would be better served if we allowed both people to speak with fewer interruptions. I'm appealing to you, sir, to do that.
Well, and him too.
Well, frankly, you've been doing more interrupting than he has.
That's all right, but he does plenty.
Well, less than, sir, less than
plenty.
No, less than you have. Let's please continue on. The issue of race. Vice President Biden, you say that President Trump's response to the violence in Charlottesville 3 years ago, when he talked about very fine people on both sides, was what directly led you to launch this run for president.
Oh, yeah, sure.
President Trump, you have often said that you believe you have done more for Black Americans than any president, with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln. My question for the two of you is, why should voters trust you rather than your opponent to deal with the race issues facing this country over the next 4 years? Vice President Biden, you go first.
It's about equity and equality. It's about decency. It's about the Constitution. And we have never walked away from trying to require equity for everyone, equality for the whole of America. But we've never accomplished it. But we've never walked away from it like he has done. It is true. The reason I got in the race is when those people, close your eyes, remember what those people look like coming out of the fields carrying torches, their veins bulging, just spewing anti-Semitic bile, and accompanied by the Ku Klux Klan. A young woman got killed. And they asked the president what he thought. He said there were very fine people on both sides. No president's ever said anything like that.
It is who's
now,
who minutes, sir.
Second point I'd make to you is that when Floyd was killed, when Mr. Floyd was killed, there was a peaceful protest in front of the White House. What did he do? He came out of his bunker, had the military use tear gas on him so he could walk across to a church and hold up a Bible. And then what happened after that? The bishop of that very church said that it was a disgrace. The general who was with him said all he ever wants to do is divide people, not unite people at all. This is a president who has used everything as a dog whistle to try to generate racist hatred, racist division. This is a man who, in fact, you talk about helping African Americans. 1 in 1,000 African Americans has been killed because of the coronavirus. And if he doesn't do something quickly, by the end of the year, 1 in 500 will have been killed. 1 in 500 African Americans. This man is a savior of African Americans. This man cares at all. This man's done virtually nothing. Look, the fact is that you have to look at what he talks about. You have to look at what he did. And what he did has been disastrous for the African-American community.
So, President Trump, you have 2 minutes. Why should Americans trust you over your opponent to deal with racism?
He did a crime bill, 1994, where you call them super predators, African Americans, the super predators, and they've never forgotten it. They've never forgotten it, Joe.
No, sir, it's his 2 minutes.
So you did that, and they call you a super predator, and I'm letting people out of jail now that you have treated the African American population community, you have treated the black community about as bad as anybody in this country. You did the and that's why, if you look at the polls, I'm doing better than any Republican has done in a long time, because they saw what you did. You call them super predators, and you've called them worse than that, because you look back at your testimony over the years, you've called them a lot worse than that. As far as the church is concerned, and as far as the generals are concerned, we just got the support of 250 military leaders and generals, total support. Law enforcement, almost every law enforcement group in the United States. I have Florida, I have Texas, I have Ohio, I have Portland. The sheriff just came out today and he said, I support President Trump. I don't think you have any law enforcement. You can't even say the word law enforcement, because if you say those words, you're going to lose all of your radical left supporters. And why aren't you saying those words, Joe? Why don't you say the words law enforcement? Because you know what? If they called us in Portland, we would put out that fire in a half an hour, but they won't do it because they're run by radical left Democrats. If you look at Chicago, if you look at any place you want to look, Seattle, they heard we were coming in the following day, and they put up their hands, and we got back Seattle. Minneapolis, we got it back, Joe, because we believe in law and order, but you don't. The top 10 cities and just about the top 40 cities are run by Democrats and, in many cases, radical left. And they've got you wrapped around their finger, Joe, to a point where you don't want to say anything about law and order. And I'll tell you what, the people of this country want and demand law and order, and you're afraid to even say it.
All right. I want to return to the question of race. Vice President Biden, after the grand jury in the Breonna Taylor case decided not to charge any of the police with homicide, you said it raises the question, quote, whether justice could be equally applied in America. Do you believe that there is a separate but unequal system of justice for blacks in this country?
Yes, there is. There's systemic injustice in this country, in education and work and in law enforcement and the way in which it's enforced. But look, the vast majority of police officers are good, decent, honorable men and women. They risk their lives every day to take care of us. But there are some bad apples. And when they occur, when they find them, they have to be sorted out. They have to be held accountable. They have to be held accountable. And what I'm going to do as President of the United States is call together an entire group of people at the White House, well, everything from the civil rights groups to the police officers, to the police chiefs, and we're going to work this out. We're going to work this out so we change the way in which we have more transparency in when these things happen. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to George Floyd. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to Breonna Taylor. Most don't like it. But we have to have a system where people are held accountable. And by the way, violence in response is never appropriate. Never appropriate. Peaceful protest is. Violence is never appropriate.
All right.
What is peaceful protest? When they run through the middle of the town and burn down your stores and kill people all over the place, and you say peaceful protest?
President Trump,
No, it's
I'm not
not,
asking.
but you say it is.
President Trump, I'd like to continue with the
Yes,
issue
go
of
ahead,
race. I
please.
promise we're going to get to the issue of law and order
Please.
in a moment.
Fine.
This month, your administration directed federal agencies to end racial sensitivity training that addresses white privilege or critical race theory. Why did you decide to do that, to end racial sensitivity training? And do you believe that there is systemic racism in this country, sir?
I ended it because it's racist. I ended it because a lot of people were complaining that they were asked to do things that were absolutely insane, that it was a radical revolution that was taking place in our military, in our schools, all over the place, and you know it, and so does everybody else, and he would know.
What is radical
totally
about racial sensitivity training, sir?
If you were a certain person, you had no status in life. It was sort of a reversal. And if you look at the people, we were paying people hundreds of thousands of dollars to teach very bad ideas and, frankly, very sick ideas. And really, they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to allow that to happen. We have to go back to the core values of this country. They were teaching people that our country is a horrible place, it's a racist place, and they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to allow that to happen.
Vice President Biden?
Nobody's doing that. He's the racist.
You just don't know.
Here's the deal. I know a lot more about this than he does.
Let him finish.
The fact is that there is racial insensitivity. People have to be made aware of what other people feel like, what insults them, what is demeaning to them. It's important that people know they don't want to. Many people don't want to hurt other people's feelings, but it makes a big difference. It makes a gigantic difference in the way a child is able to grow up and have a sense of self-esteem. It's a little bit like how this guy and his friends look down on so many people. They look down their nose on people like Irish Catholics like me and grew up in Scranton. They look down on people who don't have money. They look down on people who are of a different faith. They look down on people who are a different color. In fact, we're all Americans. The only way we're going to bring this country together is bring everybody together. There's nothing we cannot do if we do it together. We can take this on and we can defeat racism in America.
President Trump, sir.
During the Obama-Biden administration, there was tremendous division. There was hatred. You look at Ferguson, you go to many places. Look at Oakland. Look what happened in Oakland. Look what happened in Baltimore. Look what happened. Frankly, it was more violent than what I'm even seeing now.
Oh, my
but
Lord.
The reason is that
ridiculous.
the Democrats that run these cities don't want to talk like you about law and order.
Violent
and you
crime,
still haven't mentioned.
violent
Are you
crime.
in favor of law and order?
I'm in favor of law. You follow it.
Are you in favor of law and order? Go
yes,
ahead,
I'm
say
in
it.
favor.
You asked
Everybody's
a
in favor
question,
of
let him finish.
Law and order.
Loses
Law
left.
and order.
Let him answer.
Law and order with justice, where people get treated fairly. Okay. And the fact of the matter is, violent crime went down 15% in our administration.
All right.
It's gone up on his watch.
Went down much more in ours.
All right, we're now. Mr. President, you're going to. Mr. President,
every record in the
Mr.
book.
President, you're going to be very happy because we're now going to talk about law and order.
Places we had trouble were Democratic-run cities.
That's exactly my question.
Democratic.
There has been a dramatic increase in homicides in America this summer, particularly, and you often blame that on Democratic mayors and Democratic governors, but in fact, there have been equivalent spikes in Republican-led cities like Tulsa and Fort Worth. So the question is this really a party issue?
I think it's a party issue. You can bring in a couple of examples, but if you look at Chicago, what's going on in Chicago, where 53 people were shot and 8 died, shot. If you look at New York, where it's going up like nobody's ever seen anything, the numbers are going up 100, 150, 200%. crime.
Republican
It is
cities.
crazy what's going on. And he doesn't want to say law and order because he can't, because he'll lose his radical left supporters. And once he does that, it's over with. But if he ever got to run this country and they ran it the way he would want to run it, our suburbs would be gone. By the way, our suburbs would be gone, and you would see problems like you've never seen.
He would know a suburb unless he took a wrong turn.
Oh, I know suburbs.
He would not.
So much
Go ahead. Wait a minute.
I was raised in the suburbs. This is not 1950. All these dog whistles and racism don't work anymore. Suburbs are by and large integrated. There's many people today driving their kids to soccer practice and/or to black and white and Hispanic in the same car as there have been any time in the past. What really is a threat to the suburbs and their safety is his failure to deal with COVID. They're dying in the suburbs. His failure to deal with the environment. They're being flooded. They're being burned out because his refusal to do anything. That's why the suburbs are in trouble.
I do want to talk about this issue of law and order, though. And in the joint recommendation that came from the Biden-Bernie Sanders task force, you talked about, quote, reimagining policing. Yeah. First of all, what does reimagining policing mean, and do you support?
It means.
Let me, if I might finish the question. What does reimagining policing mean, and do you support the Black Lives Matter call for community control of policing?
Look, what I support is the police having the opportunity to deal with the problems they face. And I'm totally opposed to defunding the police officers. As a matter of fact, local police, the only one defunding it, his budget calls for a $400 million cut in local law enforcement assistance. They need more assistance. They need, when they show up for a 9/11 call, to have someone with them as a psychologist or psychiatrist to keep them from having to use force and be able to talk people down. We have to have community policing like we had before, where the officers get to know the people in the communities. That's when crime went down. It didn't go up, it went down. And so we have to be engaged.
That's not what they're talking about, Chris. That's not what they're talking about. He's talking about defunding the police.
That is not true.
He doesn't have any law support.
Look,
he has no law enforcement
that's not
support.
true.
Almost nothing.
Look.
Oh, really? Who do you have? Name one group that supports you. Name one group that came out and supported you. Go ahead.
Look,
think. We have time.
We don't have time to do anything.
No, think
all right.
about it. Name one law enforcement group that came out and supported you.
Gentlemen, I think I'm going to take back the moderator's role, and I want to get to another subject, which is the issue of protests in many cities that have turned violent. In Portland, Oregon, especially, we had more than 100 straight days of protests, which I think you would agree. You talk about peaceful protests. Many of those turned into riots. Mr. Vice President, you say that people who commit crimes should be held accountable. The question I have, though, is, as the Democratic nominee, and earlier tonight you said that you are the Democratic Party right now, have you ever called the Democratic mayor of Portland or the Democratic governor of Oregon and said, hey, you got to stop this, bring in the National Guard, do whatever it takes, but you stop the days and months of violence in Portland?
I don't hold public office now. I am a former vice president. I've made it clear in my public statements that the violence should be prosecuted. It should be prosecuted, and anyone who commits it.
But you've never called for the people, the leader. Excuse me, sir. You had never called for the leaders in Portland and in Oregon to bring in the National Guard and knock off 100 days of riots.
They can, in fact, take care of it if he just stay out of the way. Look here.
Oh, really?
Really? Here's the thing.
I sent in the U.S. Marshals to get the killer of the young man in the middle of the street. They shot him, and for 3 days,
President Trump,
Portland wouldn't do anything. I had to send in the U.S. Marshals. They took care of business.
Go ahead, sir.
And by the way, his own former spokesperson said, riots and chaos and violence help his cause. That's what this is all about.
I don't know who said that.
I do.
Who?
I think Kellyanne Conway.
I don't think she said that.
She said that. And so here's the
all right.
But here's the point. The point is that's what he keeps trying to rile everything up. He doesn't want to calm things down. Instead of going in and talking to people and saying, let's get everybody together, figure out how to deal with this. What's he do? He just pours gasoline in the fire constantly, and every single solitary time.
And to end this, button up this segment. I'm going to give you a minute to answer, sir. You have repeatedly criticized.
I have to answer his statement.
No, you have
his
repeatedly.
Statement. Wait,
you have
just
no. You've been talking back
and
forth.
Statement.
I'm asking you.
I would love to end it.
Sir.
I would love to end it. And
you know, if you want to switch seats.
We could very quickly.
We could do that, but
I'd send in the National Guard, it would be over. There'd be no problem.
Okay.
But they don't want to accept the National Guard.
You have repeatedly criticized the Vice President for not specifically calling out Antifa and other left-wing extremist groups. But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
are you
I'm
prepared
to
specifically
do it?
Well, go ahead, sir.
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
So what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see peace.
Then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it.
Do you want to call him? What do you want to call him? Give me a name. Give me a
white
name.
Supremacists and
who would you like me to condemn?
White supremacists and right
Proud
militia.
Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem. This is a left-wing.
FBI director
This is a left-wing problem.
White supremacists. Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
Oh, you got to be
not
kidding.
militia. That's what his FBI. His FBI director said.
Well, then you know what?
No, we're done, sir. We're moving on to the next. We're moving.
When a bat hits you over the head, that's not an idea.
Everybody in your administration tells you the truth has a bad idea.
Can I tell you what?
You have no ideas.
Antifa is a dangerous,
all right,
radical
gentlemen,
group.
We're now moving on to the Trump and Biden records.
They'll overthrow you.
When a president, I'm going to ask a question. When the president seeks a second term, it is generally a referendum on his record. But Vice President Biden, you like to quote one of your dad's sayings, which is, don't compare me to the almighty, compare me to the alternative. And in this case, sir, you are the alternative. Looking at both of your records, I'm going to ask each of you, why should voters elect you president over your opponent? In this segment, President Trump, you go first, 2 minutes.
Because there has never been an administration or president who has done more than I've done in a period of 3.5 years. And that's despite the impeachment hoax. And you saw what happened today with Hillary Clinton, where it was a whole big con job. But despite going through all of these things, where I had to fight both flanks and behind me and above, there has never been an administration that's done what I've done. The greatest, before COVID came in, the greatest economy in history, lowest unemployment numbers. Everything was good. Everything was going. And by the way, there was unity going to happen. People were calling me for the first time in years. They were calling and they were saying, it's time maybe. And then what happened? We got hit, but now we're building it back up again. A rebuilding of the military, including Space Force and all of the other things. A fixing of the VA, which was a mess under him. 308,000 people died because they didn't have proper health care. It was a mess. And we now got a 91% approval rating at the VA, our vets. We take care of our vets. But we've rebuilt our military. The job that we've done, and I'll tell you something, some people say maybe the most important. By the end of the first term, I'll have approximately 300 federal judges and Court of Appeals judges, 300, and hopefully 3 great Supreme Court justices. That is a record, the likes of which very few people, and you know one of the reasons I'll have so many judges? Because President Obama and him left me 128 judges to fill. When you leave office, you don't leave any judges. That's like, you just don't do that. They left 128 openings, and if I were a member of his party, because they have a little different philosophy, I'd say if you left us 128 openings, you can't be a good president, you can't be a good vice president. But I want to thank you because it gives us almost, it'll probably be above that number by the end of this term. 300 judges, it's a record.
Looking at both your records, why should voters elect you president as opposed to President Trump? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Under this president, we become weaker, sicker, poorer, more divided, and more violent. When I was vice president, we inherited a recession. I was asked to fix it. I did. We left him a booming economy, and he caused a recession. With regard to being weaker, the fact is that I've gone head-to-head with Putin, and made it clear to him we're not going to take any of his stuff. He's Putin's puppy. He still refuses to even say anything to Putin about the bounty on the heads of American soldiers.
Your son got $3.5 million.
And by the way, my son...
Wait a minute. Mr. President, your campaign agreed to both sides would get 2-minute answers uninterrupted. Well, your side agreed to it, and why don't you observe what your campaign agreed to as a ground rule, okay, sir?
He never keeps his word. Can you add
No,
back
no, I'm not asking. That was a rhetorical question.
Can you
Go
add
ahead,
back
sir.
30 seconds?
Yeah,
Because-
yes,
okay.
you may have.
All right.
Go ahead.
So, thirdly, we're poor. The billionaires have gotten much more wealthy by a tune of over $300 to $400 billion more just since COVID. You in the home, you got less. You're in more trouble than you were before. In terms of being more violent, when we were in office, there were 15% less violence in America than there is today. He's president of the United States. It's on his watch. And with regard to more divided, the nation can't stay divided. We can't be this way. And speaking of my son, the way you talk about the military, the way you talk about them being losers and being and just being suckers. My son was in Iraq. He spent a year there. He got the Bronze Star. He got the Conspicuous Service Medal. He was not a loser. He was a patriot, and the people left behind there were heroes.
Really?
And I resent.
Are you talking
like
about
hell.
Hunter? Are you talking about Hunter?
I'm talking about my son, Beau Biden. You're talking about.
I don't know Beau. I know Hunter.
Yeah,
Hunter got thrown out of the military. He was thrown out, dishonorably discharged.
That's not true. He wasn't dishonorably
cocaine use. And he didn't have a job until you became vice president. And once you
None
became
of that
vice
is
president,
true.
he made a fortune in Ukraine, in China, in Moscow,
That is simply
and various
not
other places.
true.
He
My
made a
son,
fortune.
my son,
and he didn't have a job.
My son, like a lot of people we know at home, had a drug problem. He's overtaken it. He's fixed it. He's worked on it, and I'm proud of him.
But why was he
proud of
given
my
tens
son.
of millions
All
of
right.
dollars?
But he wasn't given
All right.
tens of millions of dollars. That is totally,
President
totally discredited.
We've already been
Totally discredited.
We've already been through this. I think the American people would rather hear about more substantial
So do I.
subjects. Well, you know, as the moderator, sir, I'm going to make a judgment call here.
Gets $3.5 million
Okay, great.
from the
Let's
mayor
talk about
of Moscow.
Let's talk
That is
about
not
it's a
true.
Gentlemen,
That
thing.
report is totally
Why did he get
discredited.
it?
I
Mitt
think,
Romney on that committee said it wasn't worth taxpayers' money, that report. It was written for political reasons.
you know, I'd like to talk about climate change.
So would I.
Okay. The forest fires in the West are raging now. They have burned millions of acres. They have displaced hundreds of thousands of people. When state officials there blame the fires on climate change, Mr. President, you said, I don't think the science knows. Over your 4 years, you have pulled the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Accord. You have rolled back a number of Obama environmental records. What do you believe about the science of climate change? And what will you do in the next 4 years to confront it?
I want crystal clean water and air. I want beautiful, clean air. We have now the lowest carbon. If you look at our numbers right now, we are doing phenomenally. But I haven't destroyed our businesses. Our businesses aren't put out of commission. If you look at the Paris Accord, it was a disaster from our standpoint. And people are actually very happy about what's going on because our businesses are doing well. As far as the fires are concerned, you need forest management in addition to everything else. The forest floors are loaded up with trees, dead trees that are years old, and they're like tinder, and leaves and everything else. You drop a cigarette in there, the whole forest burns down. You've got to have forest management.
What do you
You've got to have cuts.
What do you believe about the science of climate change, sir?
I believe that we have to do everything we can to have immaculate air, immaculate water, and do whatever else we can that's good. You know, we're planting 1 billion trees, the Billion Tree Project, and it's very exciting for a lot of people.
You believe that human pollution, greenhouse gas emissions contributes to the global warming of this planet?
I think a lot of things do, but I think to an extent, yes. But I also think we have to do better management of our forests. Every year, I get the call, California's burning. California's burning. If that was cleaned, if you had forest management, good forest management, you wouldn't be getting those calls. You know, in Europe, they have forest cities. They're called forest cities. They maintain their forests. They manage their forests. I was with the head of a major country. It's a forest city. He said, sir, we have trees that are far more, they ignite much easier than California. There shouldn't be that problem. I spoke with the governor about it. I'm getting along very well with the governor. But I said, at some point, you can't every year have hundreds of thousands of acres of land just burned to the ground. That's burning down because of a lack of management.
But, sir, if you believe in the science of climate change, why have you rolled back the Obama Clean Power Plan, which limited carbon emissions in power plants? Why have you relaxed?
Because it was driving energy prices through the sky.
Why have you relaxed fuel economy standards that are going to create more pollution from cars and trucks?
Well, not really, because what's happening is the car is much less expensive and it's a much safer car, and you're talking about a tiny difference. And then what would happen, because of the cost of the car, you would have at least double and triple the number of cars purchased. We have the old slugs out there that are 10, 12 years old. If you did that, the car would be safer. It would be much cheaper by $3,500.
In the case of California, they've simply ignored
No, but you would take a lot of cars
roadmap
off the market because people would be able to afford a car. Now, and by the way, we're going to see how that turns out. But a lot of people agree with me, many people. The car has gotten so expensive because they have computers all over the place for an extra little bit of gasoline. And I'm okay with electric cars, too. I think I'm all for electric cars. I've given big incentives for electric cars. But what they've done in California is just crazy.
Right. Vice President Biden, I'd like you to respond to the president's climate change record, but I also want to ask you about a concern. You proposed $2 trillion in green jobs. You talk about new limits, not abolishing, but new limits on fracking, ending the use of fossil fuels to generate electricity by 2035, and zero net emission of greenhouse gases by 2050. The president says a lot of these things would tank the economy and cost millions of jobs.
He's absolutely wrong, number one. Number two, if in fact, during our administration, the Recovery Act, I was in charge, able to bring down the cost of renewable energy to cheaper than or as cheap as coal and gas and oil. Nobody's going to build another coal-fired plant in America. No one's going to build another oil-fired plant in America. They're going to move to renewable energy, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that we are able to take the federal fleet and turn it into a fleet that's run on their electric vehicles. Making sure that we can do that, we're going to put 500,000 charging stations and all of the highways that we're going to be building in the future. We're going to build an economy that, in fact, is going to provide for the ability us to take 4 million buildings and make sure that they, in fact, are weatherized in a way that, in fact, they'll emit significantly less gas and oil because the heat will not be going out. There's so many things that we can do now to create thousands and thousands of jobs. We can get to net zero in terms of energy production by 2035. Not only not costing people jobs, creating millions of good paying jobs, not $15 an hour, but prevailing wage, by having a new infrastructure that, in fact, is green. And the first thing I will do, I will rejoin the Paris Accord. I will join the Paris Accord because with us out of it, look what's happening. It's all falling apart. And talk about someone who has no relationship with foreign policy. Brazil, the rainforests of Brazil are being torn down, are being ripped down. More carbon is absorbed in that rainforest than every bit of carbon that's emitted in the United States. Instead of doing something about that, I would be gathering up and making sure we had the countries of the world coming up with $20 billion, say, here's $20 billion, stop tearing down the forest. And if you don't, then you're going to have significant economic consequences.
What about the argument that President Trump basically says that you have to balance environmental interests and economic interests, and he's drawn his line?
Well, he hadn't drawn a line. He still, for example, he wants to make sure that methane's not a problem. You can now emit more methane without it being a problem. Methane. This is a guy who says that you don't have to have mileage standards for automobiles that exist now. This is the guy who says that, well, the fact that it's all true. And here's the deal.
He's talking about the Green New Deal, and it's not $2 billion or $20 billion, as you said. It's $100 trillion.
I'm talking about
where they want to rip down buildings
and
rebuild the building.
No,
it's the
that is
dumbest,
not-
most
that
ridiculous.
is not
Where
the
airplanes are out
Wait
of
a minute,
business,
sir.
where two-car systems are out, where they
Not
want to
true.
take out the cows too.
Not
You know, that's
true.
not true either, right?
Not
this is
true.
this is a 100
Simply,
trillion.
look,
that's more money than
that
our
is-
country could make in
that is
100
simply
years if we're
not
going by
the case.
All right, let
It will
me
destroy our
because I
country.
actually, wait a minute, sir. I actually have studied your plan, and it includes upgrading 4 million buildings, weatherizing 2 million homes over 4 years, building 1.5 million energy-efficient homes. So the question becomes, the president is saying, I think some people who support the president would say that sounds like it's going to cost a lot of money and hurt the economy.
What it's going to do is going to create thousands and millions of jobs, good
$100
paying
trillion.
jobs.
Let him finish, sir.
He doesn't know how to do that.
$100
They-
billion.
The fact is, it's going to create millions of good-paying jobs, and these tax incentives to people for people to weatherize, which he wants to get rid of. It's going to make the economy much safer. Look how much we're paying now to deal with the hurricanes. By the way, he has an answer for hurricanes. He said maybe we should drop a nuclear weapon on them. They may.
I never said that
That's
at all.
he did say.
You made it up.
And here's the deal.
You make up a
we
lot of things.
we are going to be in a position where we can create hard, good jobs by making sure the environment is clean and we all are in better shape. We spend billions of dollars now, on floods, hurricanes, rising seas. We're in real trouble. Look what's happened just in the Midwest with these storms that come through and wipe out entire sections and counties in Iowa. They didn't happen before. They're because of global warming. We make up 15% of the world's problem. We, in fact, but the rest of the world, we've got to get them to come along. That's why we have to get back into the Paris Accord.
All right, gentlemen.
Wait a minute, Chris. So why didn't he do it for 47 years? You were vice president. Why didn't you get the world? China sends up real dirt into the air. Russia does. India does. They all do. We're supposed to be good. And by the way, he made a couple of statements. The Green New Deal is $100 trillion,
That is
not
not
$20
my
billion.
plan.
That's
the Green
well,
New
you want to
Deal
rebuild every
is
building.
not my plan.
You want to
All
rebuild
right.
every.
If he knew anything about,
wait.
if he knew
Gentlemen,
anything
He made a
about,
statement
Gentlemen.
about the military. He said I said something about the military. He and his friends made it up, and then they went with it. I never said it.
Okay.
That is
What
not
he
true.
did
Sir,
is he
you're done in
said
this segment.
he called the military
Mr. Vice President,
stupid bastards.
I
and he
did
said
not
it on
say
tape.
that.
He said
Mr.
stupid
Please,
bastards. He
not
said
sir,
it.
stop.
I would never
I
say
would
that
play
to
it.
the
Stop.
military.
Play it.
Go ahead.
You're
Mr.
on
Vice
tape.
President answered his final question.
The final question is, I can't remember which of all his rantings.
I'm having a little trouble myself, but and about the economy and about this question of what it's going to cost.
The economy.
I mean, the Green New Deal and the idea of what your
the
environmental
Green New
changes
Deal,
will do.
The Green New Deal will pay for itself as we move forward. We're not going to build plants that, in fact, are great polluting plants.
So do you
We're going to
support
build
the Green New Deal?
Pardon me?
Do you support?
No, I don't support the Green New Deal.
You don't? Oh, well, that's a
You
big
let-
statement.
I
That
support
means you
the
just
Biden-
lost the radical left.
I
Oh,
support
you
the
don't.
Biden plan that I put forward.
Okay.
The Biden plan, which is different than what he calls the radical Green New Deal.
All right, gentlemen, final segment, election integrity. As we meet tonight, millions of Americans are receiving mail-in ballots or going to vote early. How confident should we be that this will be a fair election? And what are you prepared to do over the next 5+ weeks, because it'll not only be to Election Day, but also counting some ballots, mail-in ballots after Election Day. What are you prepared to do to reassure the American people that the next president will be the legitimate winner of this election? In this final segment, Mr. Vice President, you go first.
Prepared to let people vote. They should go to iwillvote.com, decide how they're going to vote, when they're going to vote, and what means by which they're going to vote. His own Homeland Security Director, and as well as the FBI Director, says there is no evidence at all that mail-in ballots are a source of being manipulated and cheating. They said that. The fact is that there are going to be millions of people because of COVID that are going to be voting by mail-in ballots, like he does, by the way. He sits behind the Resolute desk and sends his ballot to Florida, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that those people who want to vote in person are able to vote because enough poll watchers are there to make sure they can socially distance. The polls are open on time, and the polls stay open until the votes are counted. And this is all about trying to dissuade people from voting because he's trying to scare people into thinking that it's not going to be legitimate. Show up and vote. You will determine the outcome of this election. Vote, vote, vote. If you're able to vote early in your state, vote early. If you're able to vote in person, vote in person. Vote whatever way is the best way for you, because he cannot stop you from being able to determine the outcome of this election. And in terms of whether or not when the votes are counted, and they're all counted, that will be accepted. If I win, that will be accepted. If I lose, that'll be accepted. But by the way, if in fact he says he's not sure what he's going to accept, well, let me tell you something. It doesn't matter, because if we get the votes, it's going to be all over. He's going to go. He can't stay in power. It won't happen. It won't happen. So vote. Just make sure you understand you have it in your control to determine what this country is going to look like the next 4 years. Is it going to change? You're going to get 4 more years of these lies.
Mr. President, 2 minutes.
So when I listened to Joe talking about a transition, there's been no transition from when I won. I won that election. And if you look at crooked Hillary Clinton, if you look at all of the different people, there was no transition because they came after me trying to do a coup. They came after me spying on my campaign. They started from the day I won and even before I won, from the day I came down the escalator with our First Lady. They were a disaster. They were a disgrace to our country. And we've caught them. We've caught them all. We've got it all on tape. We've caught them all. And by the way, you gave the idea for the Logan Act against General Flynn. You better take a look at that because we caught you in a sense. And President Obama was sitting in the office. He knew about it too. So don't tell me about a free transition. As far as the ballots are concerned, it's a disaster. A solicited ballot, okay, solicited is okay. You're soliciting, you're asking, they send it back, you send it back. I did that. If you have an unsolicited, they're sending millions of ballots all over the country. There's fraud. They found them in creeks. They found some with the name Trump, just happened to have the name Trump just the other day in a waste paper basket. They're being sent all over the place. They sent 2 in a Democrat area. They sent out 1,000 ballots. Everybody got 2 ballots. This is going to be a fraud like you've never seen. The other thing, it's nice on November 3rd, you're watching and you see who won the election. And I think we're going to do well because people are really happy with the job we've done. But you know what? We won't know. We might not know for months because these ballots are going to be all over. Take a look at what happened in Manhattan. Take a look at what happened in New Jersey. Take a look at what happened in Virginia and other places. They're not losing 2%, 1%, which, by the way, is too much. An election could be won or lost with that. They're losing 30 and 40%. It's a fraud, and it's a shame. And can you imagine where they say you have to have your ballot in by November 10th? November 10th. That means that's 7 days after the election, in theory, should have been announced.
Okay.
We have major states with that,
sir,
all run by Democrats.
2 minutes is 2 minutes.
All run by Democrats. It's
President Trump,
it's a rigged election.
You're going to be able to continue. You have been charging for months that mail-in balloting is going to be a disaster. You say it's rigged, that it's going to lead to fraud. But in 2018, in the last midterm election, 31 million people voted mail-in voting. That was a quarter, more than a quarter of all the voters that year cast their ballots by mail. Now that millions of mail-in ballots have gone out, what are you going to do about it? And are you counting on the Supreme Court, including a Justice Barrett, to settle any dispute?
Yeah, I think I'm counting on them to look at the ballots, definitely. I hope we don't need them in terms of the election itself. But for the ballots, I think so. Because what's happening is incredible. I read today, where at least 1% of the ballots for 2016 were invalidated. They take them, we don't like them, we don't like them.
But what
they
are you
throw
going to
them
do
out
about it?
left
If there
and
are
right.
millions of ballots going out
What
right
you
now,
do
what
is
are
you
gonna
go
do?
and vote. You do a solicited ballot, and that's okay, or you go and vote.
I'm asking you about the fact that millions of people
You go and vote. You go and vote,
but
like
what I'm
they
saying is, what are
like
you
they
gonna do
used
about
to
the fact
in the
that
old.
millions of people.
You either do, Chris, a solicited ballot where you're sending it in, they're sending it back, and you're sending. They have mailmen with lots of it. Did you see what's going on? Take a look at West Virginia, mailmen selling the ballots. They're being sold. They're being dumped in rivers. This is a horrible thing for our country. This is not going to end well.
There is no
this is not going to end well.
5 states have had mail-in ballots for the last decade or more. 5, including 2 Republican states. And you don't have to solicit the ballot. It's sent to you. It's sent to your home. What they're saying is that it has to be a postmark by election day. If it doesn't get in till the 7th, 8th, 9th, it still should be counted. He's just afraid of counting the votes because
You're wrong. You're wrong.
I want to continue with you on this, Vice President Biden.
Chris, he's so wrong when he makes a statement like that.
Excuse me. Vice President Biden, the biggest problem, in fact, over the years with mail-in voting has not been fraud historically. It has been that sizable numbers, sometimes hundreds of thousands of ballots are thrown out because they have not been properly filled out, or there is some other irregularity, or they missed the deadline. So the question I have is, are you concerned that the Supreme Court with a Justice Barrett will settle any dispute?
I'm concerned that any court would settle this because here's the deal. When you get a ballot and you fill it out, you're supposed to have an affidavit. If you didn't know, you have someone say that this is me. You should be able to, if in fact you can verify that's you before the ballot is thrown out, that's sufficient to be able to count the ballot because someone made a mistake and not dotting the correct I. Who they voted for, testify, say who they voted for, say it's you, that is totally legitimate.
All right.
Excuse me, Chris, when you have 80 million ballots sent in and swamping the system, you know it can't be done. You know it can't. And already there's been fraud.
Now, mail service delivers
wait a minute, gentlemen. And the final question is, in 8 states, we can keep talking. In 8 states, election workers are prohibited, currently by law, 8 states, from even beginning to process ballots, even take them out of the envelopes and flatten them until Election Day. That means that it's likely, because there's going to be a huge increase in mail-in balloting, that we are not going to know on election night who the winner is, that it could be days, it could be weeks.
Could be months.
Until we find out who the new president is. So first for you, sir, finally for the vice president, I hope neither of you will interrupt the other. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm during this extended period, not to engage in any civil unrest? And will you pledge tonight that you will not declare victory until the election has been independently certified? President Trump, you go first.
I'm urging my supporters to go into the polls and watch very carefully, because that's what has to happen. I am urging them to do it. As you know, today there was a big problem. In Philadelphia, they went in to watch. They're called poll watchers, a very safe, very nice thing. They were thrown out. They weren't allowed to watch. You know why? Because bad things happen in Philadelphia, bad things. And I am urging my people. I hope it's going to be a fair election. If it's a fair election, I am 100% on board. But if I see tens of thousands of ballots being manipulated, I can't go along with that. And I'll tell you what,
does that mean,
from a common sense,
does that mean you're going to tell your people to take to the street?
It means you have a fraudulent election. You're sending out 80 million ballots. They're not equipped to. These people aren't equipped to handle it. Number one. Number two, they cheat. They cheat. Hey, they found ballots in a waste paper basket 3 days ago, and they all had the name military ballots. They were military. They all had the name Trump on them.
Vice President
you think
Biden,
that's good?
Vice President Biden, final question for you. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm while the vote is counted, and will you pledge not to declare victory until the election is independently certified?
Yes, and here's the deal. We count the ballots, as you pointed out. Some of these ballots in some states can't even be opened until Election Day. And if there's thousands of ballots, it's going to take time to do it. And by the way, our military, they've been voting by ballots since the end of the Civil War, in effect. And that's what's going to happen. Why was it not? Why is it for them somehow not fraudulent? It's the same process. It's honest. No one has established at all that there is fraud related to mail-in ballots, that somehow it's a fraudulent process.
It's already been established. Take a look at Carolyn Maloney's race.
I asked you had an opportunity to respond.
Look at Carolyn Maloney.
Go ahead.
They have no idea what happened.
Vice President Biden, go ahead.
He has no idea what he's talking about. Here's the deal. The fact is, I will accept it, and he will too. You know why? Because once the winner is declared after all the ballots are counted, all the votes are counted, that'll be the end of it. That'll be the end of it. And if it's me, in fact, fine. If it's not me, I'll support the outcome. And I'll be a president not just for the Democrats. I'll be a president for Democrats and Republicans. And this guy,
I want to see an honest ballot count.
Gentlemen, you say that's the end of it? This is the end of this debate?
Honest ballot count.
We're going to leave it there. To be continued as in more debates as we go on. President Trump, Vice President Biden, it's been an interesting hour and a half. I want to thank you both for participating in the first of 3 debates that you have agreed to engage in. We want to thank Case Western Reserve University and the Cleveland Clinic for hosting this event. The next debate, sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates, will be 1 week from tomorrow, October 7th, at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City. The 2 vice presidential nominees, Vice President Mike Pence and Senator Kamala Harris, will debate at 9 p.m. Eastern that night. We hope you watch. Until then, thank you and good night.
好，快，看了，把那声音调开 ，Zoom 声音调高。好，那现在呢，我们进入今天的第3个环节哈，那就是嘉宾的点评。我们今天呢，请来了这个华1代和华2代左右政见不同的嘉宾，他们是傅江秀、李春贵、Jerry 冯、马贝、彭娜和张斌。那我也想先问一问你们哈，你们想，我想这样。不知道你们是不是每个人手头都有笔和纸哈？我想呢让你们写2个分数，这2个分数呢就是左边一个分数是你给 Trump 今天的表现打个分，右边的分数呢是你给 Biden 今天的分数打个分。Okay, Jerry, can you understand what I'm requesting?
Yeah, 我能听得懂 I can understand.
写完了以后呢，先不要亮出来啊，我说1、2、3，你们给大家亮出来。
也要确定我们都写完了是吧？你说的这样吧，我在写的时候，那个左右可能到时候亮出来会不一样，大家。
哦，你写个 B， 写个 T， 对吧
？Yeah, right.
写个 B， 写个 T，Yeah 就好了。OK。B for Biden, T for Trump.
Yeah.
1到10还是1到100还是1到5啊
？1到10吧，1 to 10吧。
Yeah.
1 to 10, yes.
Yeah, it's like a whiny baby.
OK， 好，抱歉大家啊。好，现在我们又回来了。那你们能不能把你刚才写的那个分数都比较贴近于这个屏幕，让大家都看一下哈？好，1、2、3。马贝还得再贴近点，我看不见。负10和8 ，OK 。然后张斌是 Biden 是8 ，Trump 是2。马贝那个负10是 Trump，Biden 是8 ，OK。然后等一下啊，Jerry 冯 Trump 是7，Biden 是4，然后彭娜是 Biden 是6.5，Trump 是0分，然后 Sue 是 Trump，Sorry，Sue 你再往上一点，我看一下。好，Trump 是9分，Biden 7分。好，最后我再说一下，Chuck，就是李春贵。Trump 是8分 ，Biden 是4分。好，多谢你们，多谢你们。Jerry 我也看到了 ，Jerry 是7 and something right OK 好
Jerry 是7 and 2 or 4
Jerry 你能再亮一下你的分数吗 Jerry
Yeah.
4分吧。
I gave Biden 4 and Trump 7.
OK 好好
Sorry.
OK。
好的。
这个 Jerry 跟我看的差不多，这个你看我们俩的眼睛还是很准的啊。
Yeah.
No, you have to wear glasses, okay?
You're biased.
我们几个那个没戴眼。我们几个那个没戴眼镜的，主要是刚才大跌眼镜，把眼镜全都跌掉了，跌掉了好几副眼镜了，现在全都 run out of glasses。
其实是这样，就是我这个看这个就是这种debate吧，我觉得就是咱们要保持一种心态，就实际上是一种看戏的心态。其实这个另外一方面也是一个学习的过程。
好，我们现在呢，那我先那个说一下哈，就说今天呢，看来就是我们在大家各自的心目中都有这次这个 debate 这个 losers and winner 对吧？赢的一方和输的一方。那我也挺想听一听你们，就是首先你们看一个 debate， 你们的这个衡量的标准是什么？就是 what make it a loser or a winner of the debate？ 你们谁想说一下吧？你们自己直接说吧，想好了。
这样吧，我先说吧，我通常呢都会跟别人说辩论、争论和吵架，这个是完全是两回事儿。第一呢，辩论我想首先看到的是你的信息的来源，你一定要有这个 reliable 的 source， 一定要有 facts， 然后再带入你的 opinion， 对吧？这三个步骤是必不可少的。那如果仅仅是今天我们比谁的声音大啊，你儿子怎么了？你女儿怎么了？你家人怎么了？这个完全就是个吵架，连争论都算不上。所以今天我为什么给这个拜登打6.5呢？我觉得他不够这个 aggressive， 就是说他在某些方面他应该还有更强的这个证据，他没有拿出来。川普呢，完全他就不是在这个我们所谓的这个辩论，对，他就完完全全是一个吵架的状态。所以我不认为，我就不认为他们是在辩论，就这么简单。
对，我想补充一下啊，当然是。
哎，等一下，因为那个等一下马贝，因为我知道你给那个Trump 的分数也是比较低的，我现在想听一个反面的哈 ，Jerry， 你是那个新来的，Jerry， 我也挺想听听你是怎么样，就是你的衡量标准是什么
Okay, so if I use English, is it okay?
Yeah, sure, it's fine.
Okay, yeah, so
sure. 你也可以混着说 ，OK。
好，so 我给 Trump 给了7分，然后 Biden 4分。那我这个 I chose 7 and 4 for Biden and Trump is not based on what I believe as they're like who I support. Because if we're looking at the facts and in the debate, or it's not really a debate, it can be arguably a circus. Trump really did a lot better than Biden, and this is not anything related to my political beliefs. I don't support either candidate. I'm an independent voter. But if you're really looking at who really got the most out of the debate, it's been Trump. Every single thing that Biden has stated, obviously this is not the traditional debate format, but we cannot have this expectation of having a traditional debate format to understand the presidential debates. And I think that Trump has said a lot of things that really kind of put Biden on the spot, and Biden did not get to take the same advantage onto Trump. There were a few times, but
Trump
has ultimately been able to do more.
OK， 好，那明白了。那马贝，你来说一下吧，你是怎么样的一个打分标准？
好，大家都看到我的这个打分差距比较大一个是 Trump is -10， so agree with Jerry， 而且我也 agree with Chuck， 就是说这并不代表我的一个political 的一个view， 因为这个 debate 从另外一个角度来说 ，it's a show，and Trump treated it as his reality TV show， just like Apprentice，all he wanted is drama。 and he doesn't care about his people. He doesn't care about 200 people's life, lost in COVID-19. I worked many years in public health, in drug standards, and I know this year for me, as a worker in that area, it's a very dark year. So I gave him a -10. And in addition to what Peng Na just said, 所以我想讲就是说，我刚刚在我们小组会上稍微展示了一下，就是 Trump he spent so much time on what mail-in ballot is, and then 他已经在设置这么一个陷阱，就是说 mail-in ballot is a fraud, is a shame. But I think actually he's talking about himself. He himself is a fraud, is a shame. That's why I gave him a -10 because if you look at this, I just opened my mail-in ballot 5 minutes ago. 我刚刚打开我的 mail-in ballot 所以大家可以看到我的这个 mail-in ballot 很清楚，我住在 Maryland， 所以呢你会看到它的这个 mail-in ballot 是 it's not a fraud, it's not a shame. However, I am not going to do mail-in ballots this year. I will go in and for early voting. 因为我让我的选票被他的所谓的煽动和鼓动变成从一个真实的事情变成了一个谎言。因为大家都知道，我们从2战过来都知道纳粹是怎么变成的，1000遍谎言后就变成了。
等一下，马贝，一会儿我们再展开说哈。那我也想现在再给Sue，你也是，你刚才是没有参加我们的那个会前 pre-debate， 那现在你是新人，所以我也想听听你，你是怎么样，你的打分标准是什么？
我的打分标准呢，就是说regardless the political standpoint， 你有没有在有限的时间里，这2分钟时间里，很好的表达你的观点，去 support 你，然后呢辩论赢对方，我觉得创作的比较好，但是他比我想的预期差一点，而且Joe Biden 呢比我想的预期好很多，我会认为他很糟糕，但是他今晚我觉得比他平时说话的状态呢，他今晚算是表现的比平时状态好很多的，所以我给他打的分也蛮高的。
好的，张斌呢？张斌你说吧，你的分数？
我是打了84，对吧？
就是
怎么？
这是 Biden 8分 ，Trump 4分。OK。
就是说我Biden 其实我们也比较了解了。他我觉得他比我想象的可能稍微好一点，因为他毕竟做了这么多参议员了，对吧？这种 debate 不是什么对他来说不是太大问题。也许我们对他年龄有点担心，对吧？但是 turn out 没什么问题，而且他基本上是 fact base， 对吧？但有时候就是因为这个变成吵架之后呢，一般是说很难吵赢这个 shouting match 的，一般吵不赢这个川普哈。那川普我觉得他唯一值得说的，他就是说他有这个 fighting spirit，OK， 所以我给他2分 ，OK， 剩下的基本上没有 fact base 的东西，对吧？所以你要说 debate， 你说我们 debate evaluate 它是什么东西？你要有 reason， 对吧？你必须有 reason， 你才能 defeat 别人。那我们说这个川普没有任何 reason， 他就是 slander， 对吧？他就是只是抹黑别人的对手。所以最后你很难给他打高分，因为怎么说呢？就是说他没有 fact base 东西啊。那个 Hunter Biden 在什么俄国拿了$3 billion， 你说这些完全就是说信口开河的东西，对吧？所以你很难给他打过5分。
好，谢谢。那个李春贵，那你也讲一讲吧。你打的分数是 Trump 高，对吧 ？Biden 低。
对，我跟那张斌我们俩加一块就平了，是吧？这个对我给的8分。
你们俩加一块的话，他们每个人都是满分了。
他们俩都平了，他们俩都是。是这样，就是说，对，实际上你看他们俩吧，这个也是就跟这拳击比赛似的。Trump 呢，他的一些这个打的都落在这个白登的身上，然后白登打他几拳的话，基本上就是说大概挠痒还可以，是吧？没有落到实处，我觉得这个是他。当然了，我觉得而且他确实，你看他眼神吧什么之类的，确实很显老，这真是年龄不饶人呐，这个东西还是大家都看在眼里。
好，那另外呢，我也想听听，就是你们哈，就是如果我现在想，你们如果用一个词来形容这一次的这个总统大选的话，就是在你心里面，你看总统大选的时候，就是你觉得就是 What is it？ 如果你用一个形容词来形容这个的话呢 ，Can you say something？ 我挺想听听你们。
百年一遇，我觉得还是很精彩的。
哦 ，OK， 好，其他的人呢 ？Jerry 好像刚才说是一个 circuit，I heard you say that， 对吧？是个马戏团。
Yeah, I said circus.
OK， 马贝你也觉得是个 circuit，OK， 然后呢，张斌、彭娜和 Sue 呢，你们觉得呢？你们有没有用一个词，就是说这个 election debate， 这个 presidential election 这个 debate 是个什么？
一个字儿不容易说。
好，那你说3个字吧。
没听到过的。
哦 ，OK，There's nothing new，nothing new，OK， 好。
一团乱麻，
一团乱，
或者怎么说呢
？OK， 一团乱麻。
Not moving the needle， right？ 就是说我不想，我觉得不会有什么人因为他们这个 debate 会说 change 他们的 standing。You know， 这个
正是我想问的下一个问题，就是说，通过这次 debate， 你觉得 Trump 和 Biden， 当然你不说你自己哈，你觉得就是普通大众哈，就是说，对于这个他们赢得大选的几率是增加了呢，还是减少了？能不能说服一些人，或者说能不能把一些人就说 turn off 了？
对我觉得有几点可能会让这个有一些人 turn off 的。第一就是说，刚才李春贵说哈，就是说好像川普的几拳打在他身上，我觉得一点这个都是他们的 old talking point， 都没有任何问题。最关键的是，我觉得今天川普最傻的几点就是，第一，那个 Chris Wallace 让他 call out white supremacists， he didn't do it，OK， 然后 call out Putin， he didn't do it，OK。这个是他最大的败点，他真的在没有任何一个场合，他敢这个去批评这个普京和这个新纳粹这个白人至上，他完全没有这个 gut。
这个也不是新东西，对吧？
我觉得这个就是说，实际上你要理解，就是美国这种曲艺的，或者就是这种，尤其像那个拳击比赛什么之类的。其实他这个就是要求，就是说，尽管战士在旁边要把你分开的时候，都要先再来几拳，就是这样的。他美国人就是这样，咱们用华人这种观点，
这胡说八道。拳击比赛说不打了，裁判说不打了，就你
没有，人家都是再来2下。
你就是看那个名人打了baby是吧？那个人走了之后，他一拳把人打死了，是不是这样子？
哎呀，没，不是打死了，都是至少在。
根本就是要在腰带底下来几拳嘛，就是这样。
对，至少再晃几下。
No， 那是犯规，对吧？你觉得那不犯规？
他不是，他这个是这样，因为什么呢？他就是讲的一个就是 fighting spirit， 就是战斗精神。你这个，你比如说吧，这个
胡搅蛮缠属于。
他这个拜登实际上就让你感觉到，确实他这个没有一点精神头，他那个就是让你觉得这个缺点什么东西。你知道吧？他这个就好像那个我这个工作，我想要就要，给我就要，不给我就算了。
我回到娜姐的问题哈，就是说有没有改变有些人的看法？我觉得川普的铁盘呢是不会变的，拜登呢他也有一部分铁盘也不会变的，但是今天晚上呢，大家都有一些增分，有一些减分。拜登的耀眼之处呢，就是他表现的比较有 compassion。比较有同情心，什么你呀，我们是为了你呀，他这个川普不理你，这个川普这个Joe Biden是加分的，那川普的加分呢，就是他隶属他的成绩，他确实做出了的成绩，他恰到好处的提出来了。你像说什么普京啊，什么 white supremacists 啊，我觉得这个是全球主义的 fear monger。普京跟美国有什么太多的关系，对不对？他们为什么 go after 普京？然后 white supremacists 你们有来美国多久了？有多少 white supremacists 了影响你的生活，来抢劫你，来烧你的房子？这个完全是 fear monger 去针对一群人的，对不对？你让大街上打砸抢的都是谁？主动 offensively 打砸抢的都是谁？没有什么 white supremacists， 这个完全就是一个 fear mongering。
FBI 抓的都是 white supremacists。 打砸抢。
没有，这
OK，
打
这个
砸抢的都是 Black Lives Matter， 都是 Black Lives Matter 跟 Antifa 的人，没有。
No， 你自己去看那个 FBI 的这个通报，这第一点。第二一点呢，没有每一个总统都会 call out white supremacists。Racist.
这个国家
Okay.
white supremacy 这个本身就是一个 conspiracy， 哪里有什么 white supremacy？ 我在美国住了22年，我没见到什么 white supremacy。你到外面去打砸抢被偷，你家里被他们有组织，他们有抢过哪个华人的餐馆吗？他们抢过哪个华人餐馆吗？他们有打哪个华人吗？
这个不是你作为一个总统不 call out，
这个完全是 media 的，这是完全是 media 的 propaganda， 这是 media 的 propaganda。
这不是你的这个不批评的理由，也不是你说
不是不批评的，你可以去找华人 supremacy， 因为华人 supremacy 也是个华人 supremacy， 这个完全就是。
我们也不能就说是就像那个刚才那个 debate 哈，我觉得特别的让人比较 annoyed 的一点，作为我作为一个 viewer， 我觉得我特别的 annoyed 的是什么呢？就是我听不清楚他们就是在说什么，就是因为老有人打断，所以这个呢是我对这个 debate 特别的有意见的一点。我觉得呢 Chris Wallace 也许能够做得更加好一点，可能这个对于我来讲是我觉得他没有特别好的控制局面。当然了，因为Trump 呢他是大家都知道他比较喜欢打断别人这种的，所以呢对于 Chris Wallace 来讲确实可能比较难做。我也希望就是因为下面还有另外2场的这个总统的辩论，那么其他的那个就是 hosting 的这个电视台能够或者还有这个他们的主持人能够就是 learn something from it， 然后能够采取一些更加强的一些措施来 stay in control。那我们呢这里我也不想让大家来搞一个这个 shouting match 哈。这样吧，我现在还有一个这个问题呢，就是说 Jerry， 我想问问你，就是你觉得他们这次这个辩论里面哈，有没有什么 missed opportunities？ 就是说。Right, yeah， 就是说，可能有什么地方也许 Trump 能够说得更好，或者有什么地方也许 Biden 能够说得更好的，就是有没有他们自己的这种的 missed opportunities? What do you think?
Yeah, I think even if there were a lot of different opportunities, I think Trump took a more advantage of these opportunities than Biden did, because Trump, obviously, we all know he is very, he says whatever is on his mind, right? So every little thing, pointing out Biden's son as being discharged from the military, and all these different attacks on Biden, he took advantage of pretty much every single thing. But Biden took a very passive approach today. He didn't really, and in some ways that is respectable. I think in presidential debates, there should be, theoretically, there should be politeness, kindness, compassion to each other, and to have respect. But obviously that's not what happened today. And so Biden could have really grilled, I think in our Generation Z language, roasted Donald Trump on his, taxes, tax fraud. That's something new and recent that's come out. During the presidential debate with Hillary Clinton, they didn't have this knowledge that Trump only paid $750 or however little money. And Biden really could have, continued on with that. But he took a very passive approach today. And I think there are the people who vote for Trump are going to vote for Trump. The people who are going to vote for Biden are going to vote for Biden. So meaning the people in the middle is growing and growing. And I don't think Biden has taken advantage of that to convince the people on the other side that he could be the better candidate.
I think Biden, I think the one thing he may made a mistake, because today, he said, hey, I'm not supporting this Green New Deal. Mm-hmm. That may actually, distance his stance to those people who are much younger, right? They are supporting AOC, that's a woman from New York. And, she got a lot of followers, right? So, and if those people stay home, just like what they did in 2016, I would think he could get into big trouble.
但是我是觉得 Biden 他说的是一个 fact， 他说的是一个 truth。我觉得这个呢，确实是就是说 separating him from 比如说 Trump 呢，大家会觉得就是说，我知道你想听什么，我就给你拽给你什么。那这样的话呢，我觉得就是说就是 stay away from the fact。那么如果 Biden 能够这样说的话呢，那我反而我会比较 respect 他。好，那马贝你说。
对。
我来说两句。好的我的看法和Jerry 正好相反我当然也同意Jerry 他的这个就是说 Trump 在今天的 debate 上是he's extremely aggressive right 他就是把这个像当成吵架一样但是呢 Biden 呢是我不认为他是一个 passive 我认为他是he did it in a very gentleman way. He did it in, with a presidential candidate manner. 我觉得他是作为一个总统候选，他是作为一个非常有值得尊敬的一个总统候选人的样子来做这场 debate。所以呢，我也同意 Jerry 你刚刚的说法，就是说，铁盘是不会动的，支持 Trump 的铁盘还会支持 Trump， 支持 Biden 的铁盘也还会继续支持 Biden。最大的是这个中间派。那比方说，如果我作为中间派的话，我看了今天晚上的 debate。我会被 Trump 的这种吵架的这种气势，我会被他吓到，我不会对他就是更加会有好感，相反呢，我会觉得Biden 会更有总统相，他可以站在世界领导人的这个前列，他更有总统相，他更加能够懂得这个世界的这个政局的整个这个把握，所以我是从中间派的角度，我会说，如果是一个中间派的话，他很有可能会偏向于 Biden， 这是我的一个看法尽管就是我也同意就是你刚刚讲到的好几点，比方说像他的这个这个 personal tax return 的这个问题其实Biden 可以拿这个来大做文章，但是我自己觉得这可能是今天 Biden 团队的一个他们的一个战略，也就是说 play it low 并不代表我就是play it passive， 所以我觉得他是在以一种更加尊敬的这个方式来处理这场辩论，来赢得中间派的这个尊敬和信任，这是我的看法。
那我想呢，就是因为今天的这个整个这个 presidential debate 也是一个 highly structured， 因为呢本身之前就已经跟两个竞选人都就是Biden 和 Trump 都已经跟他们说好了，就是说一共有6个问题，每次呢这个问题呢那个 Chris Wallace 问出一个问题，分别给你们2个人2分钟来回答，然后之后呢再开始这个互相的这种讨论。那么这个6个问题都已经规定好了，那么里面也没有 tax， 所以呢，我想就是可能也不太容易，就是整个把这个 tax 这个问题 elaborate 出来说。当然了，这里面呢，这个 Chris Wallace 今天也确实问到了这个，就是简短的问到这个，就问这个 Trump 说，那么因为《纽约时报》最近爆料出来，你在这个2016年、2017年2年分别只交了$750的 tax， 那么你到底是不是交了这么多的钱？就问他，想让他确认一下。那么 Trump 的他的确认呢，经过 Chris 再三追问 ，Trump 呢就是说这2年我都交了 millions of dollars， 他还是说他是交了 millions of dollars。那你们对这个就是你们是怎么看的？你们觉得他说的是真的吗？还是他就是在嘴硬？还是他就是还是在睁着眼在说瞎话？你们是怎么样看呢？
其实懂他
这当然是睁眼说瞎话。
其实懂他这一行的人的话，就是懂这个经济，懂这个经济管理，懂这个就是特别是 manufacture 这一行业的人，实际上都明白的。这个他并没有违反什么法律，或者他也许
看见他的 tax return 没有啊？
我不用看，因为实际上
你没有看见你怎么就能
实际上就是说，我们需要的正是这样一个总统，就是一个精明的总统，而不是一个就是懦懦无为的，干了40年什么都没有干，没有什么出色表现的。你看那个
比40年破产6次的强。OK，
那没关系，
什么都不干，
每个人的话，每个人的话都会栽跟头，每个人都会栽跟头，我也栽过跟头，知道吧？这个东西的话很自然的，没有栽过跟头的人，实际上就是长不大的，这就是我妈说的，是不是？
这个吧，我的看法正好不一样，因为呢，
好，我们听听素说一下。
好几年， 记忆呢也有好几年没有交税。我觉得川普呢，只要他没有违反的税法，因为合理避税是 OK 的，但是你刻意逃税是犯罪。如果他是刻意逃税被犯罪的话，他会被 prosecute。他合理避税，那你们又3六6，这个完全是你们选出来的民选官员设定的法律，你们找你们民选官员去，他那时候他是个 citizens。还有一点呢，我比较不同意这位美女叫什么这位马美女，我觉得我要是马贝我觉得我是中间派的话，我会喜欢川普。我就是不喜欢这种有总统相的人，为什么呢？这种有总统相的人是个好先生，好先生，你看他们在国际上每次都是在卖国，把美国的 trade deficit 一直都往上冲，把全世界的破烂事都往美国身上揽，到处去打仗，这就是有总统相的人干出来的。我们就是需要像川普这样子非常 unconventional 的人，我就喜欢他的 aggressive， 因为只有像他这么 aggressive 才能对付中国这样子的国家。
所以呢，Sue，你就是说，我们现在就是不应该选一个有总统相的，就应该就是说这两个比着，谁越没总统相，其实越是一个好总统，是这样吗？
不是说谁没总统相，因为在国际美国失分最多的，其实全就是外交政策。外交政策这些国家所谓的盟国，所谓的什么友好国家，全是都是来榨干美国的，一个个都是来抱着美国大腿的。所以现在要 reverse 这个。
我想问一下苏，最初美国的人民是从哪里来的？
美国人民从哪里来？美国是从欧洲来，然后呢？
美国的原住民是印第安人 ，Native Americans。OK，
我跟你讲，每个国家都有原住民，每个国家都有原住民。
等一下
，Everybody else is immigrant, including Trump and his family.
The founding father built this country. The founding father built this country. OK。
马贝，
原住民又杀了谁呢？
那个印第安人实际上没有成立一个国家，这个美国
就是个部落，他们不是个国家。
美利坚合众国这个国家是白人建立的。
OK， 我想给你们来一点那个 Constitution
让你们点历史。
Constitution 的 preamble 上面写的 We are law of land。英文字母叫
这个不是印第安人设立的，这个是翻译设立的。
OK，
这个不是印第安人设立的。
对，建国的人这个法律，这个 Constitution 都是。
等一下，我现在听不清楚了。咱们就每次一个人说话，那彭大，你刚才说什么 law of land， 然后呢？
然后我就想说，刚才那个回应一下那个Chuck Lee， 他说这个不摔跟头什么？我想一个人他不摔跟头，人生肯定会摔跟头，但是你不能老摔跟头，对吧？你一直摔，
也没有啊。
等一下，先让他说完。
然后我还是要回到我们之前那一点，川普的税他不是没有问题，他现在是在跟现在这个 IRS 现在国税局在讨他7000多万的这个他曾经拿回去的这个税，他们在扯皮。但是现在的问题是什么？他税务局的头就是他自己的人，对吧？你就跟 Bill Barr 一模一样，就是他自己的人，根本就不会去追他的税，就是这么一个问题。苏也讲了，刚才苏也讲了说，他如果真的是有犯了罪怎么样？我们现在不知道他们有没有犯罪，但是我们现在所知道的是，根据我们所知道的情况，他有涉嫌犯罪。如果有涉嫌犯罪，就一定要去查，但是联邦就没有查，但是纽约就有查，现在也会要去查了。听我说完好不好？然后我就想讲，就你不用去想象说，不懂管理的人，就不懂那个什么的人，我们去问。但是我们作为公民，我们有移植权，我们特别要有对总统的质疑的权利。就是说简单，我想知道那4亿多美金的 personal back 的这个 loan 是谁 back secured， 对吧？是谁？
你去调查呀，你去调查。
他应该主动交代，不是我应该调查的问题。这个应该有这个 transparency，
在这个 Trump 进入白宫之前，实际上有2年的时间，在他自己开始准备竞选总统，到这个参加初选，到这个大选，是吧？他有2年的时间。当时是奥巴马总统在当政的时候，拜登是当副总统的，他们完全有机会去调查他。但是我想那会儿的话，不知道那些税务局的人 IRS 那人睡觉了吗？我觉得
你说的对，让我来说几句
啊。
IRS 可能是有人渎职啊，对吧？ 所以川普他自己拿到那几十万、1000万的税，他就笑别人 IRS 怎么那么蠢，对吧？这是寇恩自己书里写的，对不对啊？所以
寇恩，你这个东西别人说，
喂，
你
哇，他没必要撒谎。
听张斌说完。
他没必要撒谎，他在这个程度的时候，他没必要撒谎，他只是说竹筒倒豆子，把以前川普做的事情讲出来而已，对吧？我们不是判官 ，OK， 我们只是说有别人有这个报道，对吧？我们现在不知道这个事实，所以你更不知道事实，你连那个不是事实你都不知道。
这个
let me finish， 所以你不要吃着白菜，你替卖白粉的人操心，
那没关系，
对不对
？OK， 你知道我们那个川普连那个酒都不喝的，没关系。
喂，
这个是这样。另外说到这个川普，
等一下，我们能不能让听张斌说完？好吧？
张斌你说完，张斌你说，
我们这个事情有时还有很多料会爆，对吧？所以我们在等着他后面，譬如说他这个线索，他这个4亿多美元这个贷款，他们肯定是有线索的，不仅仅是他的税表，他没有线索。没有线索，他不敢乱讲的，对吧？川普可以去告他，川普为什么不去告他？对啊，为什么不能去告他？因为他知道那是真的，就没法告，对不对？所以我们这个东西我们可以等，没关系，反正这到
是啊，这就是我刚才前面说的嘛。我说实际上这就是看戏嘛，咱们都是看戏。
但是事实我们知道，事实是他付了750块钱税，这2个事实，这是纽约记者，
这是 IRS 还没有说话，所以说咱们说什么都没用，是吧？另外这个说这个彭纳说这个成功与否啊，其实成功与否，但是你比如说 Trump 那么多 building 还在那站着呢，是吧？你说他失败了，那也许就失败了，但是人家那些 building 还在那，是吧？你说他失败了，
喂，你看你说他那个 building 啊，很多 building 都已经把他名字拿下了，为什么？
是没关系，没关系。
就说多伦多的，他以前 Trump Tower 已经把它拆下了，变成 St. Regis Tower， 因为叫他那个地方，他那个住的人很少，你知不知道？
那没关系，
他的那个牌子等下台肯定垮掉。
你看人家他失败了，你说他失败了也行，但是人家现在还住在白宫里边，是吧？这东西的话，你说能把张斌气得分分的，
我不气。
我选总统，我真的不 care 这一个。我选总统，我 care 他是不是给美国人创造工作机会，能不能把我们的 trade deficit 能不能把工作带回来，能不能给我们一个安全和公平的机会，他自己其他东西
好。那现在呢，既然就说到这个哈，那我们就说一说这个工作机会和这个 deficit 吧。我们说一说工作机会和 deficit， 因为我觉得这些呢是比较这个 undisputable 的 facts， 大家就不用争来争去的，好吗？那你们说一说，那在 Trump 这个现在当总统了这么长时间以后，他的这个 deficit 怎么样？他的这个工作机会怎么样？给美国带来了什么样的工作机会？从他上任到现在是一个什么样的状况？
从他上任到疫情之前，那个 economy 一直是在booming的。他的疫情可圈可点，这个我同意。OK， 他处理的有失分，这个我同意的。trade deficit 呢，他是唯一一个把 trade deficit 当成一回事来 tackle 的，就是说，共和党里面17个候选人，他是唯一一个把 trade deficit 当成一件很重要的事来讲。这个以前是民主党的议题。然后呢，他对中国要把这个贸易平衡，他做得很好吗？我不认为。但是他确实是要把这些事情去做，就是我们就按照 fact 吧，他有意愿把这个 trade deficit 平衡，但是他花了3年时间，我觉得他应该有更好的机会去做，但是我觉得他没有做，他在这方面，对他个人来讲说是失分的，但是平衡来讲呢，可能是得分的。
那我们这样，我们一件一件事来说吧，就是说，现在主要是你刚才提出的2个 point， 一个是那个工作机会，一个是 deficit。我们现在先说工作机会哈，工作机会呢，那既然他是在那个总统的这个位置上面，工作机会呢，你就不能说是前面的工作机会好，那我们都算他头上，后面因为来了疫情了，这个不赖他，工作机会都失效了。现在那个我们现在这个失业率可以说是除了大萧条那会儿比对。 那所以呢，那你要是看他整个在任的这个现在将近4年了，从他上任到现在，工作机会实际上是丢失了特别多。刚才在那个debate 里面也提到了，川普可能将会是唯一一个总统是在他的那个上任的这个整个这个期间，工作机会是掉的是最多的。那这一点的话，那实际上如果你选总统是要选一个这个能够给美国带来工作机会的这么一个情况的话呢，那可能他是不是就在这上面做的不太称职了呀？那
这个好像很难说吧。这个东西的话，你也得分析原因啊，是吧？你不能够说今天下雨了，是吧？你的衣服湿了啊，你这个衣服湿了就是问题了，那这个东西很难说啊。
哦不，这不是我的问题，这个实际上是你们刚才说的拿工作机会来衡量。但是呢，疫情呢，你要说疫情呢，确实疫情不长眼睛。但是呢，疫情如果你要是能够就是很快的，就是说，比如说能够在全国范围内有一个统一的管理、统一的控制、统一的指挥，这个是总统可以做到的啊。他要是能够这样的话呢，可能不至于就现在半年以后。等一下，那我说完，就是现在已经是从疫情开始到现在是半年了。那么半年以后呢，我们现在还在不但是看到这个每天的这个疫情不再下降，反而现在还有的很多地方在攀升，比如说在 Middle East 一些比如说是在那个就是Central 的这个 Midwest 一些地方啊，sorry Midwest 的一些地方，那个还在攀升。那么就像这种的状况的话，我觉得是一个 lack of leadership。那这个呢就得算他头上了，对吧？因为他是总统，不是别人是总统。那么所以这个是我觉得就是真的是有的，像素也刚才说，就是有的可圈可点，这个就可以说是对我来讲，他可以做得更好一点。
实际上，美国的 Constitution 就是说，总统对于各个州这些防疫啊、这个健康啊什么这些问题，他是没有太大权力的。他只能是提供一些指导，他可能提供一些资源的帮助，但是他们实际上没有，他不能说你那个纽约你就要怎么着，人家可以不听你的。
这样吧，我们听一下马贝。其实马贝是这方面的，可以说是这方面的专家，是这个 public health 这方面的哈。马贝，要不然你也说一下。
我先补充一下，对，我同意素，就是说你要选总统的话，看工作机会，看 trade deficit。Unfortunately， 就是说，川普在这2方面做的都非常失败，因为疫情是在他的 on his watch， 是在他的这个，他还是在做总统，所以呢，他作为总统，他其实有不可推卸的责任，对这个国家的这个整个的公共卫生健康，他要有统一管理的这个能力所以我们可能很多都不太清楚，就是说，在川普担任总统之前。历来的总统不是说民主党的总统，历来总统他都有一个国家公共卫生紧急办公室，这个紧急办公室是直接向总统汇报的，因为国家这个公共卫生健康它不是一般的问题，它和像是biotech 等等，它这些是完全结合在一起，也就是说，它可能会给国家安全带来极大的危害。所以我们这次的这个 COVID-19 新冠疫情看得非常的清楚，所以呢，像 H1N1， 像以前的这些传染病，它都有一个国家公共卫生紧急卫生这个办公室直接向总统汇报，同时呢，他们会和美国的国家疾控中心，就是 CDC， 我们经常在说 CDC 的总部在亚特兰大。和 CDC， 然后还会和美国的这个国家这个卫生健康研究院，就是 NIH， 它在马里兰在 Bethesda 是最大的一个研究院。那 Dr. Fauci 呢，他就是 NIH 美国国家卫生院下面分管传染病、呼吸病的这个主任。在他78岁的这个79岁这个高龄呢，在他的一生的这个职业生涯当中，他处理过无数次的这个。关于传染病的这个威胁美国国家卫生安全的这些事件，包括从80年代，我们有记忆的话是80年代艾滋病开始所以 Dr. Fauci 呢，他是美国这个国家传染病这个疾控中心的这个NIH 卫生研究院的这个主任。所以呢，我刚刚想强调的就是说，这个卫生办公室不是民主党总统才有，是美国总统历来都有的。但是川普上台的第1个月，这个国家公共卫生紧急办公室就被他以资金不够的名义全部撤销。 2017年2月份全部撤销。大家有怀疑的话，可以去查今年2020年1月底在国会山做的这个听证会。听证会呢有这样的一个成员，这个听证会其实是针对当时中国产生的新冠疫情，然后美国的公共卫生的这些官员都感觉到有这个必要所以在国会山 Congress 他们亲自举行了一个听证会。听证会有哪些成员呢？听证会他招来的是上一届奥巴马政府的美国国家紧急卫生办公室的这个前主任Georgetown 卫生的这个负责公共卫生安全的这个教授，以及 Johns Hopkins 的一些教授还有 CDC 的一些官员，他们这个所有的这个谈话记录都可以在国会山的这个 Congress 的这个 Capitol Hill 里面的这个记录里面都可以找到。他们其实在当时已经表现出对美国的这个整个这个公共卫生情况应急表现出非常大的忧虑。但是我想提出了一点，就是说当时我们美国的所有的大部分的民众基本上没有人知道，但是川普他们已经知道了，就是说美国其实已经在受到新冠病毒的这个非常大的威胁。
我想问一下这个
Please let me finish. Chuck, please let me finish.
Yeah, 好，实际上我有一个问题问你。
Please let me finish. Please, Chuck.
是我让你 finish， 然后我问你一个问题。
Please mute yourself and let me finish.
OK， 我问你一个问题一会儿啊。OK。
Please, OK, fine. So， 但是呢，当时川普他关心的是什么呢？就像Biden 刚刚讲的很清楚，这都是有 record。川普说他会 panic， 因为他会 panic about stock market。所以呢，你如果看 stock market，yes， 美国的 stock market 做得非常非常的好，但是 stock market 不等于 job， 不等于工作机会，不等于你劳工部每个月发出来的这个劳工的指数，完全不等于，他们是不相等的。所以呢，我们在工作机会上看到了这个政府的没有能力去提高工作机会这个能力。第二个，在 trade deficit， 我没有具体的数字，但是 trade deficit 我记得是应该是翻了1/3，升高了1/3。从川普担任总统以来3年，他的 trade deficit 升了1/3。但是我想提的是，国家的 deficit 是升了1/3，但是他自己的腰包他已经从负转正了，而且不是转的是一点点的正，他已经翻身做billionaire。所以呢，为什么他还会只付750美元的税？他应该把他自己的税单拿出来，正大光明的给我们选民看。我非常期望看到他的税单，我非常期望能有一个 national public health plan to protect ourselves, to protect our lives。所以我觉得不管你是选 Biden， 你还是选 Trump， 你还是不选票你应该为你自己的生命投票，因为这一次的投票关系到我们每一个人的生命，关系到你的父亲、母亲、你的朋友、你的家人你的好朋友，你的你可能不认识，但是你的医生、你的护士会关系到每个人的生命。新冠疫情不是开玩笑的。
完了吗？
好，那我同意马。
那Chuck刚才你想问问题，你问吧，你问。
我问问题，
你问这样我们一会儿那个 Chuck 我要让你问问题，然后呢一会儿呢，因为我们还剩下5分钟，我也其实很想简短的就是讲一下这个 mail-in 这个 ballot 这事儿好，那你问你问题。
马贝，这刚才你这个是说了很多，然后你知道听你说的话，就是川普是一个非常失败的人，他怎么最后来又赚了钱了呢？
我想问你，你对失败的定义是什么？你对成功的定义是什么？
这个
他作为美国总统，
他这个
我对失败的定义是他作为美国总统的失败。也许他个人财富他非常成功 ，he's very
以权谋私，叫以权谋私。
但是他作为美国总统是全美国历史上最失败的总统，在他的任期之内，从有20万人到9月29号为止，已经是超过20万人的死亡。
2亿吧？
美国历来的数次战争从来没有死过这么多人。
那个前副总统拜登说的是2亿人已经死掉了。
我不再说Biden，我在说 public health 的 data，public health data，this is a fact。所以
这一点我同意马贝说的，就川普对新冠疫情处理，我是川普支持者，但是他确实他确实负有责任而且他在开头他是 praise presidency 他很 transparent， 他是完全是在 BS OK， 你 support 一个总统，你不代表你认同他所有的东西，因为 bottom line 我们是美国人，我们 care for 美国，对不对 ？President come and go, we stay here. OK， 就算说，比如说你 last 20-30 years 你 support 你全部 support 民主党的话，民主党也会跟着全球主义走；你全部 support 共和党的话，共和党整天带你去打仗。OK， 你要看具体哪一个总统、哪一个政策是真正 support American， 哪些是真正去 support 那个 special interest
好，对，我们现在呢还剩3分钟哈，我想那个很快的就是说一下，因为他们这次辩论会里面也涉及到了就是这个 mail-in ballot。那我想知道就是你们对于整个这个，就是因为 Trump 他最后那个 Chris Wallace 也一直就在问这个 Trump 说他是否是很会这个和平来移交权力，如果他输了的话，那么对于这个他的这个回答，你们大家有什么看法吗 ？Jerry， actually I would like to give this opportunity to you.
Yeah, so both sides have been talking a lot about, this. Well, they actually really haven't even been saying anything real about mail-in balloting. Biden is saying people just need to vote. There's no evidence that mail-in ballots would cheat. Trump is saying the exact opposite. Ballots are disasters. Mail-in ballots will take too long. And I think both concerns are to some extent true. And I think the problem with voting is not the fact that people are not voting. It's the fact that there are people who can't vote. A large number of people in the United States are living paycheck to paycheck, right? You have a lot of single mothers who are taking care of, 2-3 kids who have to work 2 jobs every single day. They probably wake up at 7 o'clock, send the kids to school, go to work, come back, cook and then help them with homework, and the same day repeats over and over again. That is the lifestyle of millions of Americans, and these are the people who don't have time to sit and watch, presidents, being a circus and yelling at each other. They have to put food on the table, and so these presidents and these presidential debates are telling people vote, vote, vote. But neither side is really giving the people in the middle. We talked about this earlier. People who are going to vote for Trump are going to vote for Trump. People who are going to vote for Biden. But none of them have proven to the moderates. I think Biden today has definitely shown the moderates that he is maybe a little bit more presidential. The idea of being presidential, having compassion, being polite and respectful. But Trump has shown, the others also shown the moderates that he is someone who can be aggressive and stand up for the United States. Whereas Biden has shown a little bit of a more gentle approach, I'd say. So I think we're missing the point with the voting. It's not that people necessarily can't vote. It's that one, people don't have, the socioeconomic standards to, pay attention and vote, spend the time. And 2, they haven't proven to people why they should vote. Both sides have not proven to anyone why they should vote.
好，谢谢 Jerry。我其实也想那个 build upon what you have just said， 因为我觉得美国的这个竞选的问题呢，实际上是2个问题。一个呢就是美国竞选的门槛其实是比世界上发达国家呢，其他的那些35个发达国家，美国的竞选门槛可能说是最高的。因为最高，所以呢，美国的这个 voter turnout， 就是真正参与去投票的人呢，这个比例是所有发达国家里面几乎是最低的。那么当然这里面有好多原因呢，其中有一个原因呢是那个 voter registration 就很麻烦了这种，然后还有呢，我们的这个在总统大选这么重要的这个大选的日子呢，在其他的发达国家都是放在周末，如果不是周末的话，就会是一个公众的假日，方便人们这个去投票。在美国呢是11月第1个星期二，那么很多人是不方便去请假的，所以没法去投票。那么我们要想这次，尤其因为有疫情，就想让大家去方便投票呢，是有那个 mail-in mail-in 的这个 voting。那么 mail-in 的 voting 呢，实际上我知道今天他们就是也都说到 mail-in order 可能会有很大面积的这种 fraud 啊或者怎么样。实际上 mail-in order 呢，mail-in 的 voting 呢，在过去有一个很好的这个 statistics， 就是他们在统计到底有多少 fraud。那当涉及到这个 fraud 这个比例来讲，百分比是0.00004到0.000 00009，这个小数点后面还有4个0，然后才出现这个4和9，所以呢就是一个非常非常低的比例。那么按照这个比例来讲呢，就是能够去决定左右总统大选的这个，就因为 fraud 来去决定左右了总统大选的这个是根本就是不可能的，然后所以呢。Anyway， 我们今天其实我也本来挺想听你们这个几个人再讲讲这方面的哈，就是说如果你们特别 compelling 想讲的话呢，我也可以再给你们2-3分钟再讲 ，otherwise 我也就想 finish 这个了。当然，因为这个 Fox News 他们也把时间拖延了将近10分钟，所以我们也是时间有比较就是晚了10分钟才开始这个 post debate commentating。那你们现在还有什么？就是 there's something that you really want to get out of your chest.
OK， 我想要讲的就是说，美国现在最面临投票的问题，不是说 voter fraud 的问题，不是说作弊的问题，现在最面对的问题是很多人无法投票的问题。我们现在应该是要解决这个问题。刚才 Jerry 讲了，接着讲的是说，现在没有人愿意出来投票或者是怎么样，我们没有看到他们在做。其实我是想说的就是说，今年就是说这个新的一届 Congress 的时候，有很多 progressive 的那个 Democrats， 他们已经在 legislate， 就是说就是说要把那个投票日变成 national holiday。但是现在我们能知道是谁在阻挡，谁不想让人出来投票，这个就是一个最简单的一个例子。如果你说你觉得这个 voting 这个 mail-in voting 是有问题的，这个邮件投票有问题，那么你应该多开一些 polling station， 多给一些钱给各州去，让更多的人更方便，不用在那边等3-4个小时投票，你让他们很快的去投票，那就这样就 fair 了，这样你就可以做。可是你一边又在这个把这个 polling station 减少，而且特别是注重这个有色人种的社区的减少，一边又在说不能vote by mail， 这到底是怎么回事？你到底对，你到底是不是想让大家去投票，还是怎么回事？
好，我最后想 finish 说的是什么呢？就是左边跟右边的人，不光是在我们现在这个 panel， 在整个 internet， 然后在总统debate上，就是说最大的转变，从我22年前来美国到现在，最大的转变就是左边跟右边的人就看不同的消息，然后我们就 focus on 不同的地方，所以我们就很难弥合，我们就越走越远了。我们看的东西完全就是我们就是一直在我们这个自己的圈里打来打去，完全就跟另外一个人就两个在各自的 bubble 里面，我觉得这是蛮危险的啊。就大家已经不能说 people to people，
是的。
先第一个看见你是 Trump supporter 还是 Trump hater， 不是说 Hey you are Joe you are Jerry Hey how are you， 你就没有到 person to person 的这个 connection。
非常 agree Sue。好，那这样吧，就是今天呢，我是总统这个。好，你在那有点 last one， 好吧 ，last one。
所以我会讲一些跟我们今天总统debate不太相关的，我想讲 etiquette。我想跟我们的下一代跟我们的青少年讲一下今天的这个总统辩论这个 etiquette 是非常重要的，也就是说诚实尊敬don't interrupt when other people talk。You know， 这是非常 basic 的，是非常非常基本的礼貌和礼节。我觉得我们从今天的这个其实是一个反例。我想告诉我们的年轻的一代、年轻的小朋友们，还有年轻的孩子们，就是做一个从礼节礼貌的角度做一个诚实的孩子，做一个有 integrity 的孩子呀。这是我想说的。
What not to do? What not to do?
So 那人群我就接着马贝说一句 ，actually 15 minutes。我一个 Republican 朋友今天晚上发过来说 ，Trump is a bully and behaved really badly as a human tonight. I pray to God to get him out of the White House. 这是 Republican，OK tonight. So
好，行，就是 好在这个还不是这个最后一次总统辩论会哈，今天这个辩论会呢是3次辩论中的第1次，后面2次呢也都希望大家来关注，分别就是后面2次的辩论会呢是在10月15号和10月22号。那么除了这3次的这个总统辩论会呢，还有1次副总统的辩论会，就是那个 Kamala Harris 和 Mike Pence 的辩论，这个呢是在10月7号，也就是下个星期3。希望大家把这几个日子都记好了，或者呢，如果你订阅了我们的频道呢，就不会错过了。另外呢，想提醒大家的就是今天离这个总统大选日已经就差不到就是30几天了。那我们华人呢，向来是投票率最低的族裔，希望大家从今天起呢，赶紧注册成为选民，这是第1步，然后呢再去参与这个投票。具体如何操作呢？我们的这个频道里面最新的一集的视频就是手把手的教大家如何投票的。如果你订阅这个频道呢，就可以翻看上一期的视频了。那好了，我们今天的直播呢就到这里，非常非常感谢我们今天的嘉宾付江秀、李春贵、Jerry、冯、彭娜、张斌和马贝，还有我们的幕后英雄 Technical Director CJ 魏。这里是言